and the ability to effectively have a presentation is not within our quiver right now. So we decided to come here to this beautiful facility, and we really do appreciate their being here for us and being so gracious to host us. I believe I have seen each and every commissioner, so all the commissioners are here, as well as the mayor, city administrator, city attorney. And are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda from any commissioners? Oh, no, you're right. The confused look. Sorry. There will be a few additions and deletions, but for right now, let's do the ceremonial items. My apologies. Let's stand for the prayer and pledge of allegiance. I'd like to introduce Pastor George from Dunamis Ministry and Outreach. And it is a pleasure to have you here this evening, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate it. And my name's George Muguro, and I'm going to begin with prayer for the provocation. Let's pray. O God of all creation, we thank you for tonight. Thank you, God, because you are a loving God, a caring God, a compassionate God, and a gracious God. And we begin this meeting, Lord, recognizing you and praying for your wisdom. Thank you for the mayor. Thank you for all the elected leaders in this place. I pray for your blessings upon them. Thank you, Lord, for this season you call them, that they may serve the people of this beautiful city. And I pray that your grace will be upon them, that even as they serve people, they will know that they are serving you, and that they will give the best, because, Lord, you expect us to give the best and to be the best. I pray for peace of this land, that your peace will be upon this land. Bless all the citizens of this land. Lord, we pray for those who are suffering, those who may be sick, that you may be with them. Grant them the grace that they need at this time. And I pray for all the people of this city, that we will all live in harmony, we will all love one another, and we will be hardworking to make sure that our city is the best. It's beautiful, to take care of the creation that you've given us, that will take care of this land, the lakes, the rivers, the trees, and every animal that is in this place, and everyone, that we will all be taking care of each other. And so, Lord, I pray that your peace will rule in this place, that no evil will be upon this land, that this land will be fertile in everything. And I thank you for the history of this city. I pray that in the midst of the history, that your history will be written, the history of grace, of love, of care, of good virtue. And so, Lord, we thank you for everything. In your name, the name of Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor. Have a pleasant evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And now back to where I skipped to, deletions and additions or modifications to the agenda. Do any commissioners have anything they want to? I do have one. We wanted to eliminate or delete item 9B. Not because it's not going to happen, just it just doesn't need to happen at this meeting. There's still some details being worked on. It's just a detail thing. And then we wanted to add a 15D. So in the back at the city administrator reports, there will be an additional report about Team Volusia. There is some information in your packet about that, and I just want to add it to the agenda. We have minutes. Are there any additions or deletions that any commissioners would like to make to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll consider them approved without objection. And at this point, we'll turn over the presentation for the Stormwater Financial Feasibility Report, which basically is the city looking to see what we need, what resources we need, particularly financially, to create an effective stormwater system. We have our stormwater management plan now that we've never had before. We've gotten that approved, and it gives us a real starting point. Now we need to figure out what it costs. These gentlemen from Raftellus are the gurus for that. So I'm going to turn it over now to Michael Burton. And he's up in the booth, so it'll be like God telling us what we need to do. And I thank you, Mike, for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up or down? Thumbs up. Okay, good. This is your consultant from the sky tonight. But it's a pleasure to be here, and I do have a presentation to make that kind of summarizes the study and what the results of the study are. And then I have the live model so we can go in and explore any other alternatives that you would like to see in terms of changing of assumptions and that type of thing. So without further ado, I'll just launch on into the presentation. And I'm the one here presenting today. I have over 30 years of experience in this type of stuff. We've done lots of rate studies for utilities throughout the state and really the nation, stormwater utilities and other utilities also. The agenda, I'm going to go over some background with you, some assumptions that we made, evaluation and recommendations, and then the recommended stormwater rates. On April 2nd, the city engaged Raftellus to perform a stormwater rate study. The objective of the study was to evaluate the city's current stormwater rates and to develop updated rates that will recover the full cost requirement of providing stormwater services to the stormwater service area. The city provided us with the FY23 budget for the stormwater system, and the FY24 revenues and expenses were projected from the 23 budget amounts because the FY24 budget was not available or not completed at the time of the study. And subsequent years were also escalated year by year from the 24 expenses. And the escalation percentages for all years is assumed to be 3.5% per year across the board for all of the operations and maintenance expenses. The city's consulting engineer provided us with a capital improvement program, or a CIP, of the needed projects each year over the 10-year projection period. I might ask, is he at this presentation tonight?
Is Derek here? No.
Okay. The consulting engineer also provided additional operations and maintenance expenses that would be required each year due to the implementation of the capital improvement program. The capital projects are assumed to be funded by a state revolving fund, or SRF loan. It's assumed that there will be a forgiveness of 41% of the cost of the capital projects, which is essentially a grant for 41% of the project cost in an SRF loan for the remainder. It is assumed that the debt service for the SRF loans will not start until approximately 2 years after the loan is awarded. And it is assumed that the SRF loans will bundle 2 years of capital project cost as proceeds for the loans beginning in FY24. What that really means is, for instance, the loan for FY24 will include the required project proceeds for 24 and 25, and so on and so forth through the projection period. So the loan for 26 will include 26 and 27, and so on. The CIP provided to us by the city's consulting engineer is presented on the following page. The full cost is presented, however, in the study, the 41% forgiveness was deducted from each project before the project was run through the capital project funding algorithm. I don't know how easy that will be to see, but he provided us two schedules. One is immediate term projects and the other is mid to long term projects. And he numbered the projects. He didn't name them, so I don't know, can't tell you what the projects are. And you can see there's 5 short-term projects and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 long-term projects. But the more meaningful schedule that he gave us is this breakout here. And this is the way he dealt those projects out through the years. So you can see that the design is on the top line there, and you can see there's project dollars in 24 and 25, and 28 and 29. I think from 28 on is when the long-term projects are coming in. And then the building, the bidding, you can see on the next line, is in 25 through 27 and 29 through 31. And the construction is in 26 through 28 and then 30 through 32. And the maintenance that will be a result of these new projects is somewhat delayed from the projects. And then you can see that it comes in from 28 on through 33. And all of these are included in our analysis. The current storm assumptions I'm going to talk about is that the current stormwater rates are based upon the amount of impervious surface on each parcel. The current rates are based upon the number of stormwater units or equivalent residential units or ERUs of the impervious surface for each parcel, and we have not changed those units in this study. The way it was done initially, as I understand, was determined what the average impervious surface of a single-family parcel was, and that defines what an ERU is. And then for each parcel, you know the impervious surface, and you divide it by the amount of impervious surface for an ERU, and that's how many ERUs there are for each individual parcel. The rate per ERU is multiplied by the ERUs on each individual parcel to determine the stormwater charge for each parcel in the stormwater service area. This study determined the increase in rate revenue in each year that will be required for the city's stormwater system to cover all of its operations and maintenance, or O&M expenses, including needed capital projects, plus estimated additional O&M expense required because of implementation of the future capital projects. The city's current stormwater rates are not sufficient. This is our evaluation and our recommendations. The city's current stormwater rates are not sufficient to fund the system's O&M expenses and needed capital projects over the 10-year projection period while maintaining reserve balances at or above the minimum required reserve balance. The minimum fund balance is assumed to be 2 months or 70% of O&M expenses plus debt service. Therefore, we determined what level of rate increases in each year would be required to cover all of the system's O&M costs, capital costs, while maintaining the minimum required fund balance in each year of the projection period. The figure on the following slide demonstrates this solution scenario, that is, no change in the stormwater rates and projected O&M expenses, and it includes needed capital projects over the 10-year projection period. I'll tell you, I'm going to go to the slide, but when this is over, I'll bring the model up in this slide. This will be live in the model, and we can change assumptions, and it will change as we look at it. But the solution scenario has rate increases, it assumes growth of 0.83% per year. That's the first blue line there. And the rate increases that would be necessary are 150% in 24 and then 2.5% thereafter. And that would result in the stormwater rate per ERU in 24 going from 41.70 to 104.25. And then you can see it progresses at 2.5% from there going on. And it's an annual billing on the tax bill, but it is a utility fee billed through the tax bill method. And if you wanted to look at it monthly, on the last line, that would be the monthly equivalent. Your fee right now is at a monthly equivalent of about $3.48, which is very low compared to other rates around the state. And it would go to, I believe that's I can't see that very good even here. That's $8.60, and you can see the numbers going forward. And so if you implement this plan, your rate would go to a level which is not inconsistent with stormwater systems that are funding capital. Your system really hasn't funded much, if any, capital so far, and when you move into funding capital, you're just going to have higher rates to do that. And this is a graphical representation of what's going on here. And in this graph, you can see that the orangish line there is the O&M plus debt service. That's your operation and maintenance expenses plus your debt service. So it's your total cash out. And the blue line is your total cash in. And so you can see in the early years, the blue line exceeds that orange line, and when you look over at the fund balance, you can see that when you make more money than you're spending, your fund balance builds up. Those two graphs are much like managing your personal finances at home. If you spend more money if you make more money than you spend, your savings account can build up. On the other hand, when you get out into these out years here on this cash flow analysis, you can see that the spend line, the total cash out, the orange line, is greater than the revenues, and you can see in the graph to the right that fund balances begin to decline again. But your fund balances will ramp up and achieve a balance which is at or above your minimum required balance, which is the black line going across that top right graph. But then they start to decline. So what we're really looking at here is a planning period. You can see where that's defined from 2024 through FY24 through FY28, a 5-year planning period. We look beyond that just to see that what might you need to do in the future, but really what we're really trying to do is set the stage for you to be okay for the first 5 years. So if you adopt this plan, we're recommending, and we'll get to that in a minute, that you update this analysis every couple of years, because when you get near the end of the 5-year period, you may have to do some more things depending upon how things turn out relative to what the projections are, and you may have to have some higher increases, say out in in FY31, 32, somewhere in that range, than the 2.5% in order to continue to be financially sustainable going forward. The bottom left-hand graph is the capital improvement program, and the capital improvement program is funded by the SRF loans over in the bottom right-hand graph. And you can see there's a loan every 2 years, and I already explained to you that the debt service, the revenue requirements aren't that number right there. That's the borrowing. The revenue requirements are the debt service on that, so they're substantially less than that number there. So, based upon the analysis presented in the prior slide, we recommend that the city adopt the following plan of annual rate increases to its stormwater rate. You can see we have 5 years there starting in 2024. Your current rate is 41.70, and we would recommend you raise it 150% to 104.25, and then 2.5% to 106.60, 109.53, 112.27, and 115.07. The monthly equivalent is shown again down here. So your rates, as you can see in 23, are equivalent to about $3.48 a month, which is a very low rate. And when you start funding your capital program, you'll move up in the $8 to $10 range, which is, I think, not atypical of stormwater systems that are having to fund significant capital in their program. We also recommend that this plan be evaluated every 2 years to make any adjustments that may be necessary, as projected events may often occur differently than projected, and they could be material. So we need to, you will need to update this plan periodically to be sure you stay on top of what you're doing. That's the end of my formal presentation. I can open it to Q&A now, and I can also flip over to the live model if you want to, but why don't we see if anybody has any questions and wants me to go back to any of the slides that you were just looking at.
I'll play moderator and run around here. Mr. Basso.
I noticed earlier when you were doing your analysis, you used 3.5% per year when you calculated costs, but then when you ran the chart as far as the uptick every year after the 150, you used 2.5. What was the reasoning behind that?
The reason behind that was 2.5% got you within a 5-year period up above your minimum fund balance requirement. But when I bring the model up, it's easy to change it to 3.5% rate increases, and you can see what happens there too. So it's really, this is a decision support process when I get that model up, and we can determine what we think the best plan would be going forward. So. And I might recommend we consider 3.5%, because that would not put your rate too far out of line. It would still be probably in the less than $10 range as you move through the period, and it would give you a much more robust fund balance and maybe even carry you closer to the whole 10-year period. So.
Mr. Burke?
Is this projection based on or any storms that come about that would impact the outcome? More water that was determined or projected?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with storm events. I believe your consulting engineer considered the threshold type storm events in terms of the runoff when he was developing the capital improvement program. So they would have been considered in the capital improvement program. But other than that, we have not made any adjustment for it in the model itself.
If I may, I'll throw in on that. It's basically all we're addressing tonight is the financing of nothing to do with any of the engineering.
But I do believe that he considered storm events in developing that plan. That's typically how engineers do that.
I'm a little confused on the ERUs, and if you could go back to that one slide for evaluation and recommendations.
Hold on just 1 minute, let me see.
I'm just trying to understand when we talk about 869 versus 348, and that's based on ERUs. So say my property has, what is the average ERU for a property here?
Well, I can get that, when I pull the model up, I can show you that, but really what this is doing is however many ERUs your property has, your bill is being calculated by multiplying those many ERUs times the rate. And the rate now, let me get back to that slide. The rate now is 4170. So if the rate goes to 104.25, and if your property had 1 ERU, your new bill would not be 4170, it'd be 105.25. If your property had equated to 2 ERUs or 2.5, it would be the 105 times that number. So it would be, if it was 2 ERUs, it would be 108.50. So that's how the ERUs come into calculating what your bill would be.
Well, her question was how many ERUs does a typical person have? And an ERU is the average person in the city. They took an average of the entire city.
It's the average of the single family property.
Oh, an average of a engineering, some engineer somewhere said this is what an average ERU is.
And that was calculated in the past. Our scope did not include going in and recalculating and redetermining how many ERUs each property has. The assumption is that the ERUs that each property has are correct, and the number of square feet, the value of the ERU in terms of the single family impervious area is correct. So.
Does anybody remember where that original ERU figure came from? That would be a good question for Derek.
It would. Every single family residence in the city has 1 ERU. And that's not going to change. We're not talking about changing the number of ERUs per residence. It's just what is the cost per ERU. So when you get into commercial multifamily, that's when you have multiple ERUs, but not residential.
So for me, I would still have 1 ERU. I wouldn't be looking at 2, 3, or more.
Well, you might, but no. No,
Yeah, I might.
you're right. You're right. Just 1. Everybody would have 1.
Every single family residence.
Every single family residence, yes.
So was the number of ERUs before the woods were put in the same? Are we talking apples to apples? So when we talk about ERUs, we're talking about a current ERU?
Tell you what, I'm going to bring you the mic and let you ask that question again, because I could barely hear you, and we do need it for the record. It's okay.
No problem.
I was just asking you if the number of ERUs is, if we're talking about the number of ERUs prior to the woods going in, or if the number of ERUs that we're discussing includes all of the properties that are currently in Lake Helen.
It's all the properties in the woods. The ERUs were assigned to the woods when the stormwater utility was put into effect not that many years ago. So again, those numbers won't change.
So each single family residence in the city will be 1 ERU. Everybody will be averaged in, basically.
In this calculation, they're using the number of ERUs that we have in the city.
Yes. If I understand your question correctly, yes.
So how will that affect the people in the woods that already have stormwater and already pay for our stormwater?
That's a good question. The question is how will that affect the people in the woods who are already paying a stormwater assessment? And we have talk about that, so I'll turn it over to the city manager.
We already made the decision that we're going to have to adjust the woods so that they'll pay more. No, just teasing. So they'll pay less because they do have their own stormwater system. There's one caveat.
One caveat is in the, see the development order or the restrictive covenants, it says that the woods will not receive any break because they do have their own stormwater system. That's actually in their covenants and restrictions.
So they won't receive a break?
Per that document, they say that what was agreed to that they would not, but it says they will not receive a tax break because of that. This is a utility fee, and I don't know the legality of that and whether court case law would trump that agreement and say, no, you have to give them some type of an adjustment. But I just want to let you know that there is a, within the approval documents, it says they will not get a break because of they have their own stormwater system they maintain, where normally people would. Their development agreements say they will not. But I don't know the legality of that and whether or not that will apply. So.
But the commission's position is that you should receive some sort of credit based on the fact you have your own, and you maintain your own, not just that you have it, but you maintain your own system.
And we pay, we literally pay.
Yes.
They would.
Under normal circumstances, you would. Somebody who maintains their own stormwater system, you entitled to it. The approval documents just create that little nuance for it.
Since this is equated on single-family homes, how does this represent commercial establishments that have a lot more concrete?
Well, that's where the ERU factor comes in, that commercials will be equated if they have the equivalent of 5 ERUs, they'll pay 5.
I think the, let's say hypothetically, I don't know the exact number, but let's say the average single-family home had 2,000 square foot of impervious surface. That's what the average that was calculated. So that's now 1 ERU. If you go to a commercial property and they have 10,000 square feet of impervious surface, 5 ERUs. 2,000 divides into 10,000 5 times. So they will now have 5 ERUs. And then the 5 ERUs will be times that 104. That's how it will work. Single family always stays the same. And even if we went in and adjusted the square footage, because maybe there was bigger homes and now there's more impervious surface, what that would change, every single family home would still just be 1 ERU, but instead of saying 2,000, now it's 2,500. What that just means is the commercial pays less. In my example, instead of having 5, you would now have 4 ERUs, because 2,500 goes into 10 4 times. That's how that was calculated. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Because of the way the stormwater that is in and around the area of, golly, I can't, the woods. Some of the water is not captured in their stormwater system, so it falls onto the city. This particular commissioner would rather see us go into a new agreement with the woods and just say, look, the city's taking over the roads, they're going to take over the stormwater as well, we'll handle stormwater operation and any future, and then charge them the same rate as everybody else. I think it's going to be less confusing for everyone, and I think it's going to be a better mousetrap. If the system would have been done to where it captured all the water there and went in, and you could probably make the argument there's also places where water that falls on the city side goes into there. So I just think the city should take it over and charge everybody the same rate and be done with it.
Yeah, having a bifurcated system almost inherently creates a bifurcated community where we're at odds with each other, at least occasionally. I know that the Woods, they've expressed to me previously that they don't want to relinquish any of their stormwater, but I agree with Commissioner Bassett that it would probably make more sense over time to integrate it all into one. It would take away all that potential contentiousness. Now, it's been very, very cordial and nice, but it's just an inherent.
I was just going to say, we broached that topic with them when we were taking over.
We were dealing with taking over the roads and the recent agreement that we did approving their subdivision, all this kind of buttoning up everything that needed to be done, that wasn't done historically, we got everything buttoned up with the woods. We broached that topic with them, about us taking it over, and at this time, they didn't want to do it. Now, per the covenants and restrictions, we have the right to take it over if they fail to properly maintain it. So we do have that option if they fail to maintain it, but we were asking them to, let's, more or less what you were saying, we're taking it all over, let's just take it over, you know, including the stormwater. You know, the sidewalks is another issue. There's some of the area has sidewalk easements that they maintain, or some of them have sidewalks in the right of way which will be maintained. So there's not consistency there. And then your pipes, your stormwater pipes, are going to be in our right of way. So if they got to go in and maintain their stormwater pipes, they're going to have to tear up our right of way, and they're going to have to fix it back. Likewise, if there's a problem with the road that damages their pipes, we're going to have to fix their pipes, because even though they're their pipes, they're in our right of way, and our right of way causes damage. So I agree with you. That's why we broached the topic with them. They didn't say absolutely no, never. They just said, let's deal with these issues first, and then we'll talk about taking over the stormwater in the future. So.
And as I said, I tend to agree that it would be a good way to do it. Tonight isn't really the night we need to figure that out. We're not going to, and I'm not saying, you know, I'm just saying we have Raftelis here this evening to help us with the financials. We want to take most advantage we can of their expertise on the financing side and the taxing assessment, all of the intricacies that go into this. This is where their professionalism and knowledge is here to help us this evening. Ms. Preston.
Hi, I have a two-part question. One, I know you just mentioned about the woods and the caveat that they have into their, was that ordinance? What was that?
It's either the development order or the covenants and restrictions.
Okay.
It's one of the two.
What about the villa? It's a development.
Okay, the villas are all private property, so it's completely different. There's no storm. We don't do any stormwater there. That's all private property. We don't have any ability to go in there by state constitution. We can't set foot on their property to do
But
anything.
I think if the question is, should they get some type of a credit because they have an on-site stormwater management system that they maintain that lessens the discharge onto the public system, which the stormwater fee is intended to provide for. I believe that is a calculation similar to what we've talked about with the woods, excluding that little caveat language in their approval documents. Because they have their own system, that is something that should be taken into consideration. Any system that has a certain level. In talking to the consultants, I can't tell you exactly what that is, how that's calculated, because there's going to be, I think they refer to it as popping off, but once it gets to a certain level, it's got to pop off into the city system, so they got to pay something to help maintain the city system, and they drive around the city streets. And so just so their properties dry, when you want to get to and from your property, you got to drive across city streets, and that stormwater fee helps maintain the city streets, so they're open and not underwater as well.
When will we have that discussion?
That's an engineering study. That's an engineering.
Engineering?
Yeah, that's an engineering study, not a financial study. And right now, we're not contemplating
Yes.
any changes in the ERUs.
I have one more question.
Thank you for waiting for the mic. That's something important.
Thank you. My second question is, I see how we went from 4170 per year, which was the ARPA funds that covered 23.
That's our current rate.
Okay, that's what our
wherever the
current.
money came from, that's our current rate.
Okay, so we're looking at the 150%. Is that possible to go down and then even a little bit, add a little bit more along the way? So that way it's not such a big jump for our residents?
That's one of the reasons Raftelis is here with their live model. They can put in hypotheticals like that and show us in real time what those changes, how those changes would affect us. So it's a good question, and it's exactly where they excel, I believe.
We can do that.
Do you want to go to that live model now?
Sure, sure. Okay, this is the model, and you saw these screenshots of this earlier. And down here, so I can get this adjusted, these are the rates. Can you guys see this okay from where
We
you
can
are?
actually see it just fine.
Okay, so this is 150% and then 2.5. Why don't I ask the first question? They said, what if we did 150 and then 3.5%? And then I'll come back to seeing what happens if we kind of try to smooth the whole thing out. So if we went 3.5%, 3.5%, and the model won't calculate it until I've calculated it. I want to make sure that it's pulling all the way across. I'm going to just calculate the screen right now, and that will see. So now it's coming across, but it goes back to 2.5. So let me just make sure this works this way. Sorry. So now you see it's 3.5% all the way across. And these black bars are the current scenario, and they will not change when I calculate the model. But the blue bars will, and I'm going to calculate the model right now. And you'll see that these numbers gave us a little bit more cash flow, and the reserve balances are slightly higher in these out years, okay? But you still have this kind of trend where it's coming up and it's going back down in these out years, because the accumulation of debt service accumulates out here and causes more cost relative to the revenues. And you can see that happening on this orange line right here. It goes through a big jump right here with these borrowings in these out years. I mean, you might say, well, if inflation is going to be at 3.5%, and who knows what it's going to be at, but if it is going to be at 3.5%, and we got to cover inflation, and we also have to cover capital, maybe it should be even higher than 3.5%. And maybe I'm just going to do this as a demonstration to see. What if it was 5%? When I calculate that through the model, you can see that it is even more robust, and you would stay above your minimum fund balance line for the whole period, and theoretically wouldn't have to adjust these rates for 10 years. But I still would recommend that you look at them every couple of years because things happen differently than projected oftentimes. And what happens to the rates then is you would go from 104 to 109 to 114, and you would be on a monthly basis. You would go over the $10 mark, but you would go to about $12 or $13, which is still not really out of line for utilities, stormwater utilities that are having to fund a significant amount of capital, which is what you're doing. So that would be another option. Are there any questions, or does anybody want to see anything about this kind of an approach before I move to smoothing that initial increase out over several years?
I think what Commissioner Frasca was asking was, rather than have a radical increase, raise it 150%, she's saying, what if you raised it 66% over 3 years to get to that 150?
Yeah, that could.
Thank you.
I think that's what she's saying.
Yes.
That's what I was going to do next.
Okay.
But someone asked the question earlier, if you're doing your expenses escalating at 3.5%, why are you only escalating your rate increases?
That was me, and thank you.
So that's what I was addressing right there. So now let's go back to what we had to begin with. And I have a macro that brings it all back there, and it was calculated. And now we're back to where we were. So let's just, and this is a little bit of trial and error here, but let's just say we had 60% here and 60% there and 60% there. What's that going to do to us? That's way more than we, oh no, it's picking up 60% the whole time, so I need 2.5% from there on, and that would work. And it's still more than we need, so let's try 50.
I think you could probably take that third 60% in fiscal year 26 and drop that down significantly.
Or I might could take them all to 50%.
Yeah, or do 60, 50, 40.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
I was going to say that the other suggestion was do 60, 50, 40.
Okay.
Something like that.
Look at there, 60, 50, 40, when we calculate that. Now we're better than we were, but let's look at what the rates are. The rates would go up to 12, you'd be up about $13 by it. Let's look at through 2028, which is the 5-year look on that. It would take you up to about 1227 in that year. And you're at, this black line here is your minimum fund balance. Now you're on a downward trend here, so at this point you may have to do something else, but this would carry you for a while. And what I was wondering is, what if we did 50?
What happens if we leave those assumptions there, the 50, 40, 30, or that was, and then change the 2.5% after that to 5%.
Okay. So if the 2.5% after that is 5%, then we calculate that. That pulls it 5% across the board. Wait a minute, why is that doing that?
Well, we moved it from 60, 50, 40 to 50, 40, 30. That's the big difference right now.
Yeah. You want to put the 60, 50, 40 back in?
Yes, let's go back to 60, 50, 40.
And the 5 after that, right?
And 5 after that, correct, yes.
So that's more than you would need. Your fund balances are
Well,
higher. It's not, I mean, it's not bad that you have those fund balances.
It looks like we start to even out in fiscal year 26, and so maybe we could reduce that.
You mean right
20,
here?
Yes.
Well, let me do this. That's part of it because the axes are. It evens out, but it starts coming down a little bit in the out years, but not as significantly. And that would take you right up into the $15 year a month range out here, but up through the 5 years, you're still at the $10 to $12 range, 13, something like that.
Well, the next question that was asked was, what if we went from 60, 50, 40 to 50, 40, 30?
Okay.
There's a lot of ways to skin this cat, obviously, but
40.
this is very illustrative. We're starting to see how this is working. At least I am.
Okay, that kind of takes you back to where you were, but that does give you a lower impact to your property owners in the first year. You would only go from 41 to 62 instead of to the 104. So it kind of it spreads this quote shock out, if you will, of a rate adjustment. And you still get to your minimum fund balance by FY27. So you're below your minimum fund balance all along, but you still get there in the same time period. So that may be a more palatable solution. Is that what is 50, 40, 30 what you were asking about?
Try 60, 40, 20.
I can't hear, but.
Can you try 60, 40, 20?
Okay. What did we have before?
50, 40, 30.
And 50, 40, 30? 50, 40, 30. Okay, I'm going to calculate that again. I didn't see what movement happened then. And I'm going to save the black bars against those bars. And now you wanted 30, 40, 50?
60, 40, 20.
60%.
60?
Yep.
40?
40, 20.
20. That didn't change it much. You can see that fund
No,
balance
I
at the
didn't
end
think so.
is 265 compared to 277.
Mhm.
So that's a very similar plan to what we had before.
So from 24 through 28, you have more fund balance than you do.
Yeah.
In the other scenario, you're running a little bit of deficit in earlier years.
Well, for me personally, I like the first one you put up, but I'd change it from 2.5% to 5%. We're making some assumptions that costs are going to plateau, if you will, and that never happens. Plus, if you look at it as a monthly fee, even when it's raised 150%, it gets raised $5 a month. And if that's a hardship on somebody, wow. I'm sorry, I'm glad I'm not them.
You like the one we started with?
I do, because you fund it hard and fast early, and then you can get an opportunity to see whether you're funding it properly, whether your increase of your 5% going over time is taking care of what you need and what you see and what we projected. What we don't know is what we haven't seen, what may come up that has to be added to the stormwater master plan. I think it was Roger that pointed out a couple of things that were not in the plan that will be. So I would rather overfund it than underfund it, and I'd rather fund it on the front end. But that's me personally.
So I've saved this 60, 40, 20, and 5%, and that's what it looks like. And I can bring back the original plan here, which is 150 and then 2.5 each year, and calculate the model, and it's going to be pretty close to that. It actually gets you back quicker to your minimum balance, but you could also then, I don't know how you feel about the 2.5%, but we could raise the 2.5% maybe to 5% in each of these years. And I did 5%. Excuse me, folks, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to see up here. All right, now I think that does it. It's 100 and then 150 and then 5%. And that gives you, that recovers you a little quicker. We keep you up with inflation, plus tries to accommodate additional debt service for your capital cost. And your rate would go, like you said, it'd go about $5 there. And then it goes, I can calculate, if you want to see it right here, the difference between the rate, how much it goes up each year. So that would be the increase each year. So it would go up a little over $5, and then it would go up about 50 cents a month per year, the equivalent of 50 cents a month per year thereafter. Yeah.
I will say just last year when we broached increasing the stormwater assessment, that was an interesting year, and we that was my suggestion, was that we hit it hard initially, and we did hit it hard, and then we ran right into a brick wall, and and nobody really enjoyed it, and so leveling it out over a few years, to me, I think it might be more sellable, literally. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad phrase. Nothing wrong with that idea. It might be more palatable or sellable, but we won't really know that until we hit the budget presentations the same way we did last year, when we were actually putting it in front of the people and their reactions. I'm with you. We need to raise the money, and we need to get going on this.
There's also the issue of the property appraiser's office needing this data. It's my understanding that they need it for the trim notice.
Yes, that is a legitimate concern. We got to get this to them sooner rather than later. That was the other thing that happened last time, was that the property appraiser balked at such a large increase. He actually said no, he wouldn't do it, even though that's his job. We were supposed to send him the amount by said date. We did our job. We sent him the amount, and he said, no, I don't like it, which is not his job, but other than sue him, we didn't have much recourse. It was an odd moment. But that's what he did, and we're trying to avoid that happening again. We want to get, also, we, the commission, sending him that amount, did not particularly sell him on the idea of that amount. I believe with us having additional documentation as to why this amount is what it is, that will make his ability to put this on the bottom line. I think he'll be much more amenable to it. If we do it by doing it this way. When do we need to have these figures to the tax?
August 2nd.
So we have to have these to the tax office by August 2nd. What other items or what other numbers would any of y'all like to see on this? We kind of went through a few scenarios. Ms. Weary?
I'd like to see the 50-50-50. I think that might be more palatable to a lot of people.
So the question, or the request, like apparently you heard it, is 50-50-50% increase 3 years in a row and then 5 after that? Well, yeah, just leave the 5 the same.
No, I'll calculate that and we'll see where we go. That's similar in these years, not quite as robust, but it does get you back up to your balance in the same time frame, and it gives you a little more room in the out years, and it gets your rate. This is it right here. By the end of 28, it's almost $13, which is not unexpected for this type of capital funding. And I would recommend that you only look at this really for a planning period of through 2028, through FY28.
So a 5-year planning period is a realistic way for a commission to plan. One thing that keeps popping in my mind, and I'll say it out loud, is that no commission can bind any future commission. So whatever we decide literally for this year, and next year's commission decides for that year. So this can always change and will change, but hopefully we will have a good plan that will be, that the wisdom of it will be obvious for future commissions to continue. And I tend to agree.
That looks good to me.
That's looking good? That's
not hurting the low-income people right off the bat.
The problem is that the commission changes every year, so if you don't fund it.
Yeah, you're right. If we underfund it now, then it requires future commissions then to bite the bullet, if you will, and there's a lot of phrases like that come to mind, but that it requires future commissions to have the fortitude to continue with those increases. And that's a difficult thing to do. Every increase, each year there's an increase, there will be a backlash. So if we can have most of that backlash taken care of in the first year, it in my mind, makes the odds that future commissions will follow this plan more likely.
Mr. Mayor?
That's only one person's thinking, though. I heard somebody say, yes.
Yeah. This may be a question for Lee. I think that Chris Rowe is your outside counsel on this, is he not?
Yes.
Yes.
I've worked with Chris a lot over the years, a really lot. We've done a lot of work together. And as a matter of fact, we were just doing a street lighting assessment over in Castleberry. And we'll have to check with him. It may be possible in a rate resolution for you to adopt rates for 5 years. A specific rate this year, next year, the next year, the next year. Of course, a future board could undo it, but if they didn't take any action, then that could potentially happen administratively. But we need to check with Lee to make sure that would be something we could do. Not Lee, I'm sorry.
True.
With Chris.
No, I understand. Yeah, I like that suggestion that we actually, in our resolution or in our decision-making process, we decide for a 5-year period.
Right.
The future commissions could undo that, but they won't have to. They won't have to take any action for their 50% increase or 60-40-30 or whatever we do. That'll be set, and then they can just fall back on that was the plan. They won't have to create their own fortitude. Because stormwater is one of those things, it ain't sexy, nobody really wants to pay for it. It's difficult for a commission to fund it, because it's potholes, it's boring. Potholes are even more interesting than stormwater, but that's saying something.
You know, what this plan does, if I may, it increases the rate by $1.74 on a monthly basis, and 24 and 2, and then 190, and it comes back. We could probably fashion a percentage up here. It has a relatively equal increase in the rate each year, if that would be something that you would be interested in.
My thought process is we can't get stormwater funded on the heels of a 500-year flood event. I don't know when we're going to do it.
Yes, this is one of the few times in history where spending money on stormwater does look like a really good idea. It's one of those things, like planting a tree. When is the best time to plant a tree? Either 20 years ago or today. Here we are.
I just say this, as many times as I've done our budget, I've never seen a breakdown like that. So I don't know how we used to do stormwater without having this micro perspective, but it's something that I think we can work with. But we've been able to do it without this, but maybe this is something to give us a better clue as to how to use it more effectively.
I 100% agree with you. This is a tremendous tool. When it was first proposed to us, this is the first time we've seen it in action with real numbers that apply to our city, and it's very helpful. I'm hoping that maybe we can, this is not an inexpensive consultation either. We've spent some good money on this. Something like that, around $25,000. I could be wrong. But yeah, that's real money. But if we end up actually funding our stormwater, if you look at these numbers, $25,000 disappears very quickly into this process. And I think it also will help us. I think we might want to expand this type of consultation to some of our other functions as well, maybe even the entire, I know y'all do additional things, and we'll have you maybe present at some point in the future after we get through this process and you show us what a fabulous job you've done. Then we may want to branch out and use this technology in some of our other funding.
That's certainly possible. We use this for any utilities, even for the general fund. We have a model that looks at this that way too, so we'd be happy to. I've just played with this a little bit. This gets the 60, 40, 35, gets your curve up here kind of like it was before, and it gets the increase about 220, and 272. And we could play with this a little more if you wanted to get that equal each year, and there may be some advantage to that. I don't know if you feel like there would be or not. Or we could go back to I think it was 50, 50, 50, wasn't it, before?
It just makes me feel good. This gentleman back up there does this all the time and everything. And when he goes through this thing and he says, you guys are very, very reasonable for what you're doing, for what you're getting done. And that makes me feel really, really good.
Yeah, you're right. That's an additional level of comfort that this consultation brings. This is a company that looks at city after city after city after city. This is what they do. And to tell us that we're not being unreasonable, it's nice to hear once in a while.
Two things. One, this year, probably because of the issue we had last year with the property appraiser, we have to have an agreement, all jurisdictions have an agreement with the property appraiser for them to put these non-ad valorem assessments on the tax bill and how much they get paid for it. Well, they added a provision this year, an amendment that said at any time that we increase the assessment over 50% over the previous year, we have to have an extra public hearing. Now this year, we've been working with him to try to, once he sent this amendment out in the spring, we've got it worked out where we weren't sure when we had to have that public hearing. We had several phone conferences with the property appraiser. This year, we are able to use the trim notice and the public hearing that's required under the law will satisfy the contractual public hearing that he asked for. I don't know if that's going to continue to be the interpretation. And so I only mention that is If we did 49% instead of 50, then we drop below that. The other thing, as the administrator indicated, we need to have a rate off by August 2nd. This is your last regularly scheduled meeting. So you have really two options. One is you can pick a rate tonight, or you call a special meeting. You could set a rate tonight. If you're going to set a rate tonight, I would probably recommend you go with 150% year one, this year. Because you can always come back and smooth it out later, because we're not actually setting the rate until August. This is just to put it on the trim notice, and like you can always come down, just can't go up. So if you decided, like if tonight, if you did 40, 40, 30, or whatever you came up with, and then you decided, well, we would rather do 50, 30, 20, can't. So it may be better to just go in with 150% for a notice purpose. Give the staff and the consultant time to come out with a smoothing technique that everybody's happy with. That will obviously bring out more angry people at the first hearing, you know, because they're saying 150%, but that gives you the opportunity then to say, no, we're going to do it 40, 40, 20, or whatever you smooth out to. Just want to let you know that. Or you can pick that tonight, or you can call a special meeting between now and the end of July. Those are your kind of your options, but we need to have a maximum rate for next fiscal year to the property appraiser by August 2nd. We can always go lower though.
If I may speak, I appreciate the idea there, but I was going to harken back to what the mayor said. Do we want to risk the property appraiser saying no way? Or, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know the authority the property appraiser has to refuse it, but apparently that happened in the past.
Well, one second. The property appraiser has been having conversations. I should say, our city attorney has been having conversations with the property appraiser, and his sense is that he doesn't believe he'll refuse it this year. It kind of caught him off guard last year. I can't put words into his mouth, but that's the way it felt, and it's not catching him off guard nearly as much this year. And your logic, just from my point of view, is exactly the logic I had in my mind last year, which is when the meeting blew up. So it's perfectly logical, and that works in every way except politically. So that's where we ran into it last year. Let me throw it to you.
So the only thing, if you want to adopt a rate for 5 years, and that future commissions could undo it, but it would be implemented administratively if you include it in the resolution, then it may be that you couldn't go up from the rates that we'd be projected here. So I'm just going to do something here, if you don't mind bearing with me for just 1 second. I'm going to take these rates right here, and I'm going to copy them down here to values. Let's get the format the same. Okay, so those are the rates now, and this is like the save to the last scenario kind of rate here. So now, if this is what you adopt, what you send to you could send to the property. Well, you only send to the property appraiser for 1 year, right?
Yes.
He won't know anything about the future years.
Correct.
Okay, so never mind.
What I was going to mention is, if everybody's watching the various news reports and news medias out there and different city things on the cable TV city channels, every city is raising their stormwater rates due to these storms that we've had in the past couple of years, because they found out their systems were inadequate. One of the big things that we have to watch out for is our population is not in the upper levels of income, so we need to make sure that we have it to where people will be able to afford the increase. And I can understand the need for doing the initial one, then lowering it later, but if you put it at the high number into a resolution, it kind of locks it in at that level and makes it hard to change it back out of. So if we're going to look at something that's more affordable to the majority of the citizens, not the minority of the citizens.
Now that is a good point. The other thing, back to a point that Commissioner Basso made a few minutes ago, is that these numbers for the demands, the numbers that we're not changing right now, the demands that we're trying to meet, don't reflect necessarily everything we'll have to do. You had some additional projects that you wanted to add in there. They have not been added in yet. And if we find any hiccups along the way, or additional problems come up, we don't have any cushion, especially for these first few years, when we start out with the lower percentages. So there's, it's just is what it is. I'm not adding a value judgment to that. It just,
I don't need the microphone on.
well, but
Okay.
it helps.
I agree with what Roger said. I think so many people are struggling right now with the inflation on everything. So it might be a little bit more extra here, but it's a little extra everywhere collectively that adds up. I think we really need to look out for all of us.
Yes, and we also have, and you're right, we do have to look out for everybody's pocketbook, but we also are tasked as a city to look out for the streets and the stormwater, and I mean, we have to look out for both. And so, yes, we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, many of us, and so many of those factors are just beyond us. The national inflation, the way our money's not doing what it did last year, those kind of things. We can't change. The grocery store, it's insane. And it's probably not going to get any better, but all of that is just, beyond our control.
Do you want somebody to hate you over $40?
What?
Do you want somebody to hate you over $40?
I don't want anybody to hate me at all over $40 or anything else. But neither do I want them to be able to turn around and say, well, really what the city is tasked to do is, and I've always said this, what the city is tasked to do is the boring stuff, the paving the roads, stormwater, water, those kind of things. They're boring, they're not interesting ever. And nobody ever likes paying for them because they're just behind the scenes. But they are the base of existence in a modern civilized community. And we can't change that. We'll never be patted on the back and cozied up to because somebody's yard didn't flood. Nobody ever feels that way. But
I do because I have stormwater.
but it's still our job. We're doing the not sexy stuff because it's our job.
What if we put 45 and 27?
45 here and 27 there?
Yeah, no. Fiscal year 27.
Wait a minute. What? I'm sorry, what?
Fiscal year 27, currently you have it at 5%.
Uh-huh.
If you put it at 45,
And you want 45 for 4 years?
yeah,
And then 5 thereafter?
yes.
Okay. That really puts you in sound position in the out years. And through this 5-year period, right up to that year, you're in really good shape, and your rates would go up. This is on a monthly basis: $1.52, $3, and then $4, and then down to less than $1 from there on.
I think if we spread it out at the beginning and not one big chunk, that most of our citizens either will be struggling to afford it or might not be able to. I think if we smooth it out through there, that we could satisfy our citizens with a humble way and achieve our goal.
I do understand that. And this is where I ended up the first year. We have underfunded our entire existence. And now we are, over the last 2 years with this storm, we reaped what we had sown, and we didn't sow anything, so we reaped a big ugly mess. And if we want to try and ease into it and make everybody comfortable, we're probably going to reap a very similar thing. Like I said, this is not a popularity contest in many ways. This is just doing what we should have been doing all along. Also, yes, it's a threefold increase, but it's a threefold increase of $3.50. You know, if we did the 150%, it's a threefold increase. I'm not saying 150 is what we have to do. What I'm saying is that yes, it's a 150% increase, but it's a 150% increase of $3.50. We're not asking people to buy a new car every month. We're asking them to buy an extra cup of coffee at Starbucks, not at home.
Is this part of our taxes?
Yes, this will be a tax
So
thing.
we pay our most of us pay our taxes once a year. We don't pay it monthly.
I know, but that's a good way. That's just a way to break it out to where the numbers are more meaningful.
I understand that, but a lot of people don't.
I understand. People look at it different ways. This is one way of breaking it out. It's one way of understanding the numbers.
If I may, Mayor, one reason I showed it this way is because there are a lot of places that have this as a utility that they bill on the utility bill, and they bill it monthly. So comparatively, it's easier to compare to others when you see what the monthly equivalent of the annual amount would be. That's why I did that.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we have discussed. We are migrating computer systems within the city in our utility billing. We'll be able to bill on a monthly basis rather than a quarterly basis, and that should I think we should start billing this ourselves rather than through the tax notice. There's different opinions on that, but if we bill this monthly, then it does even this out for people. It does make it easier, and it's not a blow, the once a year blow, which is more significant, there's no doubt.
I'm just saying, go from 5 to 8, and you'll see it will still be easier for citizens to achieve, and we'll be raising it up.
5 to 8%
Where
where?
the 5% is?
You mean in fiscal year 28?
Yeah. Or even 7, whichever one.
I can't hear who's
So her suggestion is to go in fiscal year 28, go from 5% to 7%, and 7% out from there.
Yes,
7% the rest of the way?
yes.
I think we'll just be increasing our,
The fund balance just keeps getting bigger out in the
yeah,
year.
we're just,
And
We
then,
were like at $13,
mm-hmm.
and you're at $23.
Yeah.
You raised it $10 a month.
But we're lowering it at the beginning.
But see that gray line, now that beige line, taupe, whatever it is?
yeah,
What is that?
That is the
Monthly?
monthly rate, and you're going up to 23. We were around 13, 14
If you do 150 at the
Yeah.
beginning.
at the beginning.
But that's unreasonable for a lot of citizens.
But even if you did the 40, 30, 20, it would still, I thought we were shooting around $13, $14 in 2033. You're at $23. So
Okay.
you're way higher. I mean, you could,
So-
if you do 8% out, 7% out here, then you can lower these 45s down,
You can to 27 down to,
or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't keep those at 40. I'm just saying you're going big, the
Okay.
dollar amounts
My
are much
mistake.
higher. Yeah.
My mistake.
That's what that
But
beige
evening
line.
it.
yeah, the beige line
lower.
versus the yellow line. The yellow line, he saved a while back at, when we were looking, I believe it was at,
That was the 155.
yeah, that was the 150 and then 5 after that,
Oh,
is the
okay.
yellow
150
line.
gets us to $13, where what you're proposing gets
I
us to
see.
23. So.
I see what you're saying, I'm sorry. I didn't know what the yellow line was.
Yeah, actually, the beige line increases more after just fiscal year 26. It's already more every single year. With that easier scenario, it actually turns out to be a lot more money.
Was the yellow line 150 and then going on, or was that 50?
The yellow line was 150 and then 5% thereafter.
Drop it down to,
The reason my point when I was talking about the 150 for this year is not that I think we should do that, but we're not setting the rate tonight. What we're doing is we're putting what are we going to notice to the public in the trim notice, so what you could set the rate to when you set it. If you took Kelly's proposal, if we gave the property appraiser a 45% increase for this upcoming fiscal year, you can't go above that. Even if you went to set it and you say, that 150 sounds good, can't do it. Or you can always go down, you just can't go up. I agree with spread. There's some benefits to spreading out because the capital costs that you're funding aren't incurred to later years anyway. So you can take time to build up that reserve to pay the capital costs. I agree with that. But for tonight's meeting, I think the question is, what do you want to set the maximum it will be?
60.
Whatever it is, what is going to be the maximum you're going to set it at when in August you actually set it? Because you can always come down, you just can't go up.
Will you raise your hand up?
Yeah. I don't know if this mic works.
It does.
We've been beating this thing around the bush, and I think the horse has been trampled flat already.
That was the goal.
We got enough information. The company did their job. They gave us the information and give us figures to work with that we can make a decision with. We got a lot of other things to do on the meeting tonight. Can we do something?
I understand that completely. But you'll remember, and I'm going to throw this right back on you. Last year we had this discussion. We had it nice and briefly, and then you turned around and undermined us when it came time for the public meeting.
Because it was the last minute presentation last year. This one we did.
Now we are discussing it more thoroughly because I've been burned once. Once shame on me, once shame on you, twice shame on me. I'm not getting burned again. We're going to discuss this until it's ad nauseum because I'm not going to have people turn around and say, you're springing this on us at the last minute. So, yes, we're beating this dead horse a little bit, but these are complicated processes, and I don't want to be blindsiding people.
Mr. Mayor, the young lady up here.
This isn't a last minute presentation. This is within the time scope to be able to get the information that we needed to be able to make a decision with. And it's not a last minute like it was last year to where we had like maybe 1 or 2 days to get it into the property appraiser's office with.
Yeah, we
can take and have the number of meetings that are necessary for the future, plan them out, and have a couple more meetings and get this taken care of. But we can put figures up there all night long and keep changing the percentages around. And the bottom line is at the end of 10 years, you want things paid for, and the projections we had earlier had everything paid for in 10 years, with it being a reasonable increase for the citizens to be able to handle. So let us go and have our next meeting and get the rest of tonight's agenda handled so that we can do this properly.
Okay, I do have another comment.
It's actually me in the booth. So as the principal of Ivy Hawn, we do, according to the City of Lake Helen, pay the stormwater assessment. Our ERUs are 166 for this public school. We start public school at the second week in August. So if we wait past the start of the school year, my budget that is state funded, I am not a private school, people do not pay tuition to come here, I can't sell more education. I won't have enough in my financial budget in the 23-24 school year because my fiscal year runs from August 1 or July 1 to June 30th to cover 150% increase. So I completely understand what we're saying tonight, and I understand we need to move on, and I appreciate that. I would ask that we have something on the table that I can take back to my board and my budget so that I don't have to lose a teacher in December if we do a 150% increase with my 166 ERUs.
Is that understood by the commission?
I understand the predicament that you're in, but we're not going to be able to do the final approval on this tonight. We can only make a recommendation tonight to be put into a resolution that will have to be presented at another meeting.
You don't need a resolution, just need a consensus, and I transmit it to the property appraiser. The actual setting of the rates occurs in September.
But like the lawyer said, we're in a situation now, we gotta do something with this meeting, because there's nothing, it's gonna be, later, next meeting is gonna be past where we go. If we do what he suggested, at least we get it voted on, we can always reduce it or change it at that point. But if we don't do that, there's no next meeting.
At some point between now and August 2nd, you're gonna have to give me direction,
Yes.
not you, him, on what to send to the property appraiser. Again, doesn't have to be formal, doesn't have to be a resolution, but they need to have something to fall back on when they print the trim notices. Then in September, you will actually adopt the resolutions that will set the rates.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have to do something tonight to move it on.
Something either between now or then, yeah.
Then I make a motion, we accept a 150% rate increase to notify the property appraiser, and then we can adjust it later at future meetings to a more reasonable one for the residents.
Okay, there's been a motion that we set the increase at 150% for the trim notice to the property appraiser. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Eckert, a second by Commissioner Basso, to increase that to 150%. Is there discussion on those? Would you like to support your motion? Or have you?
I think I already said enough to support my motion.
Yes.
So it seems that there's two sides of the argument. There's one that let's get this done, let's get it up to par, and then there's the second, well, let's be mindful of the residents that can't afford it. So my mindset is, why don't we split the difference, put it 75, 50, 25, the rest at 5. It's still at the 185 overall percentage increase. It gets us there, but it's more palatable, and it's in between what everybody's saying.
So that was 75, 50, 25. Could you throw those numbers in there, 75, 50, 25, in those first 3 years so we can have that visual?
And then 5 thereafter?
Yes.
Okay.
Is
That's
that
pretty good.
is that an amendment, or how, is that just discussion that you would like this voted down and then we will go to that? Yeah, we do have a motion, so that's a potential amendment. I tend to agree with that, just in discussion purposes. I think throwing it all the way to 150 does have dominoes that affect not so much the individual citizens, but like Ivy Hawn and other businesses around town that when they get that trim notice, it's going to create need for them to really make hard choices. Right now based on that, because they don't have anything else to base it on.
That is why earlier in the beginning of the discussion, it was suggested that we set the rate and then we come back with meetings and we can lower it below what we set it at in the future. We don't have to go by the same thing like with the tax rate.
Mm-hmm.
We set the tax rate and we can bring it lower, but we can't go higher than that rate.
So if we
start high, we can discuss and bring it down lower later on. So this gives them a chance to set in their budgets a high amount, and then when we bring it down lower, it gives them a reserve to handle future payments.
Well, what this Representative Hawn here said, yes, if they set it in their budgets, that means that their budget then reduces a teacher. They fire a teacher. I mean, these are not insignificant things we're doing here. Of course.
The reason that I'm bringing this up now is, and not later, is because if we put it out there that we're increasing 150%, you're alarming everyone, and I'm of the mindset that we're not going to raise it 150, or at least that's not what I would like to see done. So I don't want to put out, ring the alarm. Everybody's up in arms about it coming to the meeting, and there's no reason for that discussion if we're only planning to, lower it. That's just my thought.
I agree that the 75 seemed to, actually the 60, 50, 40 seemed to work pretty well. When we got in that range, 75 gives us a little more wiggle. So 75 works more in my mind. The motion on the floor, however, is for 150. Is there any further discussion on the motion at 150?
I'll withdraw my motion and I'll put out a new motion.
Okay, so that does the person who seconded the motion want to continue their second at 75%?
But of course.
We appreciate your being a team player. So the motion and the second on the floor is now at 75% increase.
He hasn't made his motion.
Mayor, he still needs to make a motion for 75 to 100%.
Unless Heather's making her motion at 75.
Go right ahead then. Whatever y'all just
No,
discussed.
I was going to go down to what I discussed earlier.
Which is what?
45, 45, 45.
Okay, so
So if you want to go with Heather's, go with Heather's.
You want to see 45, 45, 45?
Do you want to see that? Is that what you're wanting?
We've already seen it.
The question has been asked, do you want to see 45, 45, 45?
Seen it earlier.
We saw it earlier. Okay. So are you making that motion? I know you're having a lot of fun here, but I need to know what the motion is on the floor.
I'd like to make a motion, 75, 50, 25.
Okay, we have a motion for 75, 50, 25, which is up there right now. Did we have a second for that? Roger seconded it? Okay. So what's on the screen right now is the motion before us, and really the only thing that has to be decided by consensus tonight is that first 75%, correct?
Basically, all you're doing is saying, all right, the most that we're gonna raise it is 75%, there's still wiggle room to come down at future meetings when it's actually set.
So y'all five commissioners, including myself, understand that the motion is for 75%. That gives us some wiggle room. We can come down. Yep. Got it?
Yep.
Is there any further discussion on this by commissioners? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Zone 1.
Yes.
Zone 2.
Yes.
Zone 3.
But of course.
And Zone 4.
Yes.
And Zone 5, I vote yes as well. So the motion carries. So our initial... Yeah, that's a good thing. Hopefully, now, this year, it won't blow up in our face like it did last year. I appreciate your indulgence. I know that this gets a little bit like beating a dead horse, but last year we didn't beat the dead horse, and the dead horse beat us. And we ended up with nothing. So I don't want to end up there again. So last year's brouhaha ended us up with nothing. So we're going to move forward.
Mayor.
Yes.
Can, what's the name? Bruce?
Mike?
Mike, can he print off that page that shows the 75, 50, 25?
Did you hear that question, Mike? If you could print off that page for us, and maybe actually, I wouldn't mind, because we're going to be discussing these going forward, if you could send us about 3 or 4 of those scenarios that seemed like we're getting some good feedback. And then when we do, I think we will need to call a special meeting before August 2nd to put this in a resolution. We can have those numbers to look at, and because yes, it would be beneficial to us to have those in front of us.
Yes, sir, I'll get that to you sometime.
We don't need a resolution, we just... Oh. Okay.
Those things will be helpful for when y'all meet this.
Yeah, so if you could get us a few of those and by September. I think that's not too tough since you were able to get it in a few seconds here tonight.
No, you don't need them tomorrow. You can get them early next week.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
I didn't hear. Is that okay for early next week, Mr. Mayor?
Early next week would be lovely.
All right, perfect.
I do need to look at my agenda here. We do have one more presentation this evening. Do we need to do anything more with Reptelis before we say thank you? Mr. City Administrator, was there anything else we wanted Reptelis to do? Is there anything else y'all would want Reptelis to do? I see your hand, Kelly, but I'm trying to move on. Is there anything you want Reptelis to do?
It's not for them, it's for the commission.
Okay, what?
Where's the money that we paid with the ARPA funds? Is that going to be included into a fund?
Okay, the money that we set aside last year in the vote, we did not spend any of, I don't believe. We basically we set aside in principle, that's not the right word. We set aside some of the ARPA funds for that. So those now, at the end of this fiscal year, will be unspent. They will still be available to the city.
Will we be able to have that into the stormwater fund?
We could, but we have not voted on that. We could, but we haven't voted on that. And we won't tonight. But that's something to keep in mind if commissioners want to remember that. The next presentation we have is from, I've forgotten your name, I'm sorry. Suzanne, I'm going to turn the mic over to you, and thank you for being here this evening. I'll just let you introduce yourself, I'm sorry.
No problem. Suzanne Schreiber, and my organization is Dream Green Volusia. I'd like to hand the commissioners a sheet, if that's all right. Okay. Actually, I brought it up here, so. All right. I'm here to do a presentation. Sorry, it's getting a little late. A presentation on land conservation. My organization is Dream Green Volusia. We're a countywide not-for-profit that works on environmental issues. And for full transparency, I serve on the Volusia Forever Committee. I am not here to represent the committee tonight, and this presentation has nothing to do with the committee directly. I just want to make it clear that I'm not representing the committee, I'm representing my own organization, even though I am here to talk about land conservation. So, next slide. The Florida Wildlife Corridor runs through our state. We have a portion of our county that is part of that. As the slide says, about 17.7 million acres is the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and about 54% of that is actually protected right now. The remaining lands are called, that are outside of the 54%, are called opportunity lands, and they are considered 1 through 5 opportunity priority lands. 1 through 3 qualify for state level funding through the Wildlife Corridor, and that is Florida Forever funds. Next slide. So why would we protect the Florida Wildlife Corridor? Well, there's an organization that is called the Wildlife Corridor Conservation, and they advocate at state level for funding. We have Volusia Forever in our county, and it's a matching funds program. So they advocate at state level every year, and this started years ago, which I'm going to get to in just a minute, but this year they advocated and they came back with quite a bit of money. Why would you protect the corridor? Well, to keep connectivity for wildlife that moves around the state, which is quite difficult to do we live in a pro-development state. But to be quite honest, a lot of people don't care about wildlife. That's the hardcore truth. So why else would you protect the corridor? Because of the aquifer. A lot of our aquifer in our state, and we have more springs than anywhere in the world in the state of Florida. A lot of people don't realize that, but we do. And not all the springs are in the wildlife corridor, but that is one reason that you would want to protect the corridors, because of our aquifer. Recognize where food is grown. We have ranches and farms in the corridor in the state of Florida, and we have a real disconnect right now, because when people walk in the grocery store, they just think their food comes from the grocery store. I don't mean to sound silly, but it's true. And it's not. It comes from farms and ranches, and that's another reason to protect the corridor. And there are farms and ranch easements that protect those as well. And they have wildlife actually passing through, and farmers and ranchers are aware of this. And the last is to understand the tourism and economics of the corridor. There are approximately 128,000 jobs. The last time that I heard a presentation myself on this was about a year ago. There were about 128,000 jobs in the corridor alone. And those jobs are what I'm talking about here with ecotourism, ranches, foods, even land management jobs. Next slide. So in Volusia County, this is a map of our Volusia corridor that is a subset of the larger state level corridor. And we happen to follow the state level just as a pure coincidence that we have about 55% of our land protected. That is the corridor, that is not all the land that is protected. We also have development in the corridor. So the way that this came about was about 22 years ago. Our corridor here that you're looking at on the screen was created in around 2001. So we've had land conservation for about 22 years. And it was renewed about 2 years ago when the public voted and they brought back land conservation through Volusia Forever, and they voted 75% to tax themselves for land conservation. So with priorities 1 and 2 are all we have in Volusia County. Within that corridor, we have land that is 1 and 2 qualifying at state level right now for matching funds, providing that it qualifies. And by qualifies, I mean meets the criteria. I don't just mean in the wildlife corridor. It has to be environmentally sensitive land. There are a number of criteria it has to meet, and there's a number of criteria it has to meet for Volusia Forever. So outside of the corridor right now today, just outside of it, not a large distance outside of it, you can apply for a special exception, and Volusia County is going through special exception right now with some land that has been submitted to state level. And they've asked for a special exception because it is abutting the corridor, and it's actually 1,300 acres. And so that has to go through a 2-year process to get matching funds. There's a lot involved in land conservation. People vote, but they don't know all these things I'm telling you. Next slide. So to determine the wildlife corridor, like how did this come about in the first place? There is an organization, it's called the Florida Ecological Greenway Network. They determine through many factors whether land is qualified or not within the corridor. This year, the state passed all of this funding that you're looking at. It's quite a bit of money. That $850 million, that section right there, Volusia County has around 3,500 acres that qualify for that funding inside the corridor. But what I'm here to ask you tonight is to support, for the city of Lake Helen, to support doing what's called ground truthing and research by the county to expand our existing corridor in our county. And why would you want to do that? For additional matching funds. So we are at a point right now where we have quite a bit of land conservation since we've had our program for 22 years. We have very little left within the corridor that qualifies, but outside of the corridor, there are problems with matching funds. You have to apply through St. John's Water Management, or you have to apply through Florida Community Trust, or Florida Forever funds. There's different ways, but reviewing and ground truthing means that the county actually looks into the remaining areas for environmentally sensitive land to see what qualifies. So on June 16th, the Volusia Forever Committee voted unanimously to do this. It doesn't cost us money, it costs them effort. That's what goes into it. So if Lake Helen provides a letter of support, it will support the research to be done And I'm asking you to do it not only for your city, but to also do it for the greater good. Because the entire county needs to be looked at. And while this may sound like a daunting task, keep in mind that we have land conservation for 22 years. It's already been going on. We have land that is in conservation by St. John's, by the county. Some cities have conservation land. We have development. There's really very few areas left that might qualify. Next slide. And the last bit here is Volusia Forever is the Willing Sellers Program. The seller has to be willing to sell. They are paid. It does go through county with negotiations. The Volusia Forever Committee is not involved in that at all. And the priority lands, again, 1, 2, and 3 are eligible. Next slide. So the ask is for a letter of support for the research and to submit it to the Florida Ecological Greenway. I'm not asking the city for any money. I'm not asking the city to do the work. I'm asking for a letter of support because the county council is going to be voting on this. And I would need a letter of support by the end of the month. And I can answer any questions if you have them. Oh, last thing I want to say is one last thing. There are no guarantees. If you can't tell, the research has to be done. I mean, that's the point of asking for a letter. It is possible that we would come out with nothing that qualifies, or we might come out with anything in between, you know. But it has to be done. The work needs to be done.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Are there any questions? I'm not hearing any or seeing any hands. Commission, what do you think about offering a letter of support for this? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to provide a letter of support for the staff to do the research.
I'll second it.
I have a motion from Commissioner Rushledge, a second from Commissioner Eckert to provide a letter of support for this. Do you have some specific verbiage you would like in that letter of support, or do you have a template perhaps? That if you could give us a letter saying really beautifully what you want us to say. Tell us what you want us to say. I think we're willing to say it, but is there any other discussion from other commissioners on this? You ready for the question? I'll call the question then. All in favor of providing a letter of support, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. So yes, we'll put together a letter. If you could get that information to staff, I'll be more than happy to sign that. And we can get it to, let's put all of the commissioners' names on the signature. Looks better with more names. Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation. At this point, I think the commission can move up to the tables, and we'll finish out the rest of this business meeting as quickly and efficiently as we can. Thank you. All right, consent agenda, acceptance of bills paid report. Do I have a motion to accept the bills paid report?
Motion.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Have a motion and a second to accept the bills paid report. Is there any discussion, anything, any concerns? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, next is old business. Consideration of an ordinance 2023-02 on first reading, amending the comprehensive plan. I'm going to turn this over to the city attorney here in a moment to give a legal introduction to this. I will say, just from a political standpoint, we had met with Mr. Hurley and Mr. Doan many times. We had come to one point in the process, and then the legislature turned around and changed the rules on the playing field, which is their purview. So now we're reassessing where we are as a city. That's why it's coming back again. It's nothing anybody here did. We're just reacting to the changing truth of political life here in Florida. So, Mr. City Attorney, I'm going to bring you the mic so that you can explain this from a legal point of view.
We have
Oh, you have one. Excellent.
Okay. Probably just do a recap. I don't think this is as much for the commission as it is for members in the audience may wonder what's happened historically. So I'll do a very brief recap. There was a large portion of property which is now considered the auto mall project, but it was actually in the unincorporated area of the county. It wasn't in the city of Lake Helen, it wasn't in DeLand. Mr. Hurley, who is the project developer, wanted to develop an auto mall. He's in the automotive business. He petitioned to annex all the property in the city of Lake Helen. DeLand objected. They challenged our annexation. We came to a settlement agreement where part of the land went to DeLand, part of the land came to Lake Helen. The portion that came to Lake Helen was the auto mall itself. The part goes to DeLand is other uses. We have land use and zoning on the property currently, which is employment center, and it is for an auto mall development that was proposed at the time. And I'm certain that if Mr. Hurley could build it today, he would. But as we know, the economy changed, COVID hit, that changed everything. So Mr. Hurley came to us, the city, and asked to do residential. And what we have, two things we have to look at. One is our comprehensive plan, specifically the future land use. And then we also have to look at our zoning, which is the plan development. And because the land use and zoning currently on the property does not contemplate any residential, we needed to make changes to our comprehensive plan. So we presented a comprehensive plan change to the commission a few months ago, I can't remember when, and it was to change it to all residential. I think there were some apartments and there were some townhouses. It went to the planning board, who recommended denial, and then it came to this commission, and you voted no on what's called the transmittal hearing. And at that time, just so we understand, when you deal with your comprehensive plan, making changes to that, it's a legislative policy. There's a lot of discretion you have in doing that, a lot of discretion you have in establishing your regulations. When you get into applying the regulations you have to a particular piece of property, that's what's called quasi-judicial. There you have to support your decision by substantial competent evidence. You don't have to do that with legislative policy. As long as you don't clearly abuse your discretion, it's pretty much going to be untouched. So at that time in the law, you had the authority to say, we really want commercial here. We don't want to go residential on this property, and that was within your purview. The legislature, this legislative session, adopted a bill, some may have heard, it's called Live Local, and it was really pushing affordable housing, is basically what that bill does. But one of the things it did was to create rights and property owners to develop affordable housing on property that is not zoned for residential use. Specifically what the law says, or I should say generally, because I'm not going to read it. Generally, the law says if you have property that is commercial, industrial,
or multifamily, property owner has the right to develop a multifamily development to the maximum residential density allowed within the city, to a maximum height that the city would allow within 1 mile of the project, as long as at least 40% of the residential uses qualify as affordable housing. The one caveat to that is if the jurisdiction has less than 20% of commercial industrial property, the jurisdiction, local government, has the authority or the right to say, we want a mixed-use project. The law says if we do that, at least 65% of the development has to be devoted for residential. 35% then would be devoted for the commercial industrial. What that basically did is that the state effectively trumped or preempted issues on land use, density, and height. They took that away from you. Now, somebody has a right, this particular property owner has a right to pursue residential development if we change nothing. We change nothing. Leave it commercially the way it is. They have a right under the new law to pursue a certain amount of residential development, a certain density, as long as a certain percentage, a minimum percentage, is affordable housing. So it changed the dynamics. Before this law went into effect, we all had the discretion to say, no, we want to keep this commercial, that's our vision. The state, now after that law, you can take that position, but they have, all property owners now who have commercial, industrial, or multifamily residential property have a right to pursue multifamily residential development. Based on that law passing, we had lots of discussions with y'all, lots of discussions with the property owner and his attorney, and they were evaluating whether to pursue the rights under the law, which they still have the right to do. That's something they can pursue. And actually, if they decide to go forward under the law, the way it's written, they don't have to come before our planning board or you for approval to change the use, the density, or the height. That is administratively approved. The next thing you would see is more or less a site plan. They still have to comply with the rest of our regulations, but height, density, and use, the state took that decision-making authority away from you. So we've worked out to see what type of project would they be interested in. We still ask for a mixed-use development. And so what's before you is a new comprehensive plan amendment that will allow up to 348 residential units on up to 20 acres of land. And then the balance is for commercial. We do not put a units per acre in there. They could put 348 on 10. They could put 348 on 20. They obviously have to meet all the concurrency regulations, whether it's traffic, water, sewer, all that stuff. They have to meet those concurrency regulations, and those concurrency regulations are going to be based on the impact of those units. Now, whether they're on 10 acres, 15 acres, or 20 acres, same impact, really, from a traffic standpoint and water utilization. One perspective would be, it would be better for them to put more units on less acres, because that would be more acres for commercial, which is what y'all wanted. But we have no more than 20 acres is being proposed, can be used for this residential use. They are not proposing any affordable housing. Legally, we can't ban it, prohibit it, but if they were actually seeking affordable housing, then they would probably be going after under their state law. They have the right to do that under state law. So that one situation where you would say they are not looking for affordable housing because they could do that right now under the law. And that law went into effect July 1st. And there's some other language in here. It will come through as a planned development. Our plan, if you remember when we talked about this before, it has not changed. We wanted to bring to you a concept to see if you were willing to support a concept. That's initially we brought you the residential concept and you said no. There's a lot of work to be done once you
give initial indication that you want to support that concept. This is not their final bite at the apple. This is a transmittal hearing. After the transmittal hearing, it gets transmitted, that's why it's called transmittal hearing, to various state agencies for review and our local VGMC. And everybody's going to have comments. While this comprehensive plan amendment is being reviewed, we will work then with the property owner and the land to come up with a development plan, zoning. I don't think there's many changes contemplated to the development in the land side. The changes are contemplated on our side, but obviously they have to meet all the utility issues. That's concurrency. They got to make sure they can deal with, they have adequate water and sewer coming from the land. There's a lot of work to be done, and it makes sense that the developer is not going to invest in all that engineering studies and analysis to make sure the concurrency is right if conceptually y'all aren't buying off on it. So that would be kind of a waste of money. So tonight we're here saying, do you want to conceptually buy off on this project? Now what has changed since the last time it was here for approval? Before you had the discretion to say, nope, we want commercial. Now we have this new law where they can now pursue, even though you don't want it, they can pursue residential. Whether or not they would or not, I don't know. I don't know if it's economically viable. Those are questions beyond what I can advise you on. What I can tell you is the law as written gives them the right to pursue a certain level of residential, and there will be affordable housing there. And I can also tell you, reading the new Live Local law, one of the things they seem, as I read it, they increase the tax exemption, ad valorem tax exemption for affordable housing. And sometimes it's up to 100%. So, as the law is written, I don't know a lot of details about how that works, but what it seems to me, they're trying to make more affordable housing to be built, so they're incentivizing the developers to do that, and what they're doing is they're lowering the property taxes.
They're forcing us to incentivize it.
Well, yeah, and so, but because they know if we sit there and say, well, we're going to make it so these affordable housings pay nothing, then no jurisdiction is going to want them in their community. So they go and change the law and say, well, no, they have a right to go anywhere they want. That's where we sit today, more or less. It's not a great situation, but it is what it is. This law may be challenged. It could be subject to modification. It could be subject to interpretation by the courts. But that is where we are today. So one option is to, this project, we've talked to them about what do you need residential-wise, what kind of commercial can we commit to, and this is what they're willing to commit to. They still have, obviously, the option to pursue what their rights are under state law. And so that's really kind of your option, is this project, or let them pursue what rights they have under state law. And you will get, if they do a project, you're going to get affordable housing. It could be 100% affordable housing over there. So it's, I think this is a good, we'll call it a compromise. We're still getting commercial, which was important, I think, to everybody. But the economics is the reality. It's, I don't think Mr. Hurley wanted to build this when he started. He certainly wanted to spend all that time and money designing those buildings for the auto mall just to come around and build this. But that's the reality of where we are today. Housing is very, very crucial. There's obviously a need for it. And this is a good compromise. We still get some commercial. The level of detail will come in between now and second reading. So what will ultimately happen is, what I envision is, if you were to pass this tonight, it gets sent off to various agencies for review. We'll start working with the developer and the land, come back, go to the planning board with a new development agreement. And then with a recommendation to you on a new development agreement. That will have significantly more of the details you'll be wanting to look for. You will then take action on that first reading on the development agreement. If you pass that, then we will bring to you for second reading both the adoption of this comprehensive plan amendment, and if you adopt it, then we will go and do second reading and adoption the new rezoning development agreement. So we are not adopting, the intent is to adopt everything at one meeting. We're just we're phasing the first readings so we can go through that process, because there is going to be a delay because it has to be transmitted to the state for their review and comments, and then they'll come back to us. But that's generally how we plan to work it out. So if you approve this tonight, we will then start working on details, get that back to you, work with the land, hopefully all the concurrency stuff works out. We'll bring back the project, and ultimately you'll have a package to adopt at least two things for sure on second reading. That would be second reading of this ordinance for the comprehensive plan amendment and the new rezoning development agreement. If you don't adopt this tonight, then just like last time, nothing's going to move forward, and then we'll just see if the property owner pursues their rights under the state law to develop it as allowed under state law. That's kind of the options presented before you. Any questions? And there are attorneys here to talk to. I didn't want to make his presentation or anything like that, but I just wanted to kind of bring it to where we are today. This is the reality of where we are today. And whether you like it or you don't like it, call your state legislature, blame them. Call your governor, blame him.
We would rather yell at you.
What's that?
We would rather yell at you.
That's fine.
No, I'm just kidding.
I can tweet to Governor DeSantis.
I appreciate that offer, but so we have before us an ordinance 2023-02. Do I have a motion to consider this?
I guess I should read it by title. I didn't read it by title, did I?
No, you have not.
Okay, let me go ahead and do that first. Ordinance number 2023-02. By title only for first reading. An ordinance of the City of Lake Helen, Florida, Chapter 2, Comprehensive Plan, by amending the goals, objectives, and policies text within the future land use element related to allowable uses within the employment center future land use, providing for severability, codification, and conflicts, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to pass this?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to pass on first reading, ordinance number 2023-02. Now that we're here at discussion, Mr. Doan, I'd like to turn it over to you for a minute. I'm sure you didn't. Would love to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
No real formal presentation because of the workshop that we were able to do together, and I appreciate that. And that was the one, and Scott did a great job explaining what this is and what this isn't. And really this is a rehearing of the ordinance that was passed before after you voted for a reconsideration. And that was a really good summary. And when Scott mentioned the word compromise, what we had on the table before was 300 apartments, maybe a little more, and 150 townhomes. This brings the total residential unit count down, freeing up some acreage for commercial. One of the things about the affordable housing model and the percentages and everything else and the way it works, what you end up having is when you have a higher percentage of affordable, you devalue the commercial around it. You make it much more difficult to develop. A lot of the land that's out in this 50 acres it's not good wetland. There's good wetland and bad wetland. There's some that's really viable to the aquifer and other things. It's not good wetland. It's the kind that is just expensive to develop. And if it's too expensive to develop and you can't develop it with high enough quality commercial, then the math doesn't work. And so one of the things about that whole matrix is if we can't do this unit count on a smaller number of acreage and do it in a higher value, higher kind of luxury standard apartment, then we're not going to be able to develop any of the commercial. It just won't be viable. So this was kind of a good compromise. Get rid of the townhomes. With that, you also get rid of the possibility of the various tax exemptions that go with single-family home ownership. As we discussed previously at a couple meetings ago, multifamily actually essentially gets taxed more like commercial property as far as the value per acre. And so it becomes, I think, more of a win-win for both the landowner, future developers and users, and for the commission. And you know, there's a lot of discussion about local act, what's good about it, what's bad about it. I've done a couple town hall meetings with it now with the city commission. I'm doing another one Tuesday night, I think, at the Republican Assembly of West Volusia, in a presentation called "What Can My Neighbor Build and Why?" And a big focus of that will be the Live Local Act, because as we've talked about in our workshop, frankly, I'm a big believer in home rule, and that cities and counties ought to be able to do what they see fit. The state required decades ago that you have a comprehensive plan to have long-term planning, where you want commercial, where you want industrial, where you want residential. And then in a response to kind of our housing crisis, they said, well, forget about that for a while. You can put affordable housing wherever you want. But it's the law of the land, and that's what we're all dealing with. And I thank you all very much for your consideration and the time we spent at the workshop kind of going over all this. And again, what it's not, this isn't setbacks, this isn't architectural renderings, this isn't all of those things. All of those things still have to happen. And what we'll do is take that development agreement, amend it, take it to the planning board, get their feedback, bring it to you for your feedback as well. We would have to do that no matter what, because the only thing we're allowed to build right now on the Lake Helen side is new vehicle auto sales and incidental uses, and now by this law, affordable housing. We can't put restaurants, we can't put retail, we can't do anything else because of the development agreement that's in place. So what we anticipate is by adding this to the land use, we now can put it in the zoning agreement. We can also add those retail, office, all those other kind of uses that are currently just on the DeLand side into the Lake Helen side as well. And for all of the commission or staff or anybody in the community too, if there are particular uses that aren't currently allowed that you would like to see, this is a great time to tell us so we can work it in with the future users we're talking to. And my guess is we'll want to hear all those comments at planning board too.
Thank you very much. Do I have any, or do any commissioners want to weigh in on this step of the process? Could you turn your mic on?
Can't hear you.
Did everybody see the emails late this afternoon from the city of DeLand?
I did not, no.
Speaking about the water usage and utility, that they said make the commission aware there could be some utility issues or...
Those are being worked on.
Yeah, there's been an ongoing discussion really for months or maybe even over a year with DeLand about that. They are obligated under the PD to provide water and sewer under the agreement, the annexation agreement. The question, and it's a legitimate question from DeLand, is even though the auto mall would have generated a lot more traffic and different kind of intensity of use, there weren't going to be nearly as many flushing toilets and showers in the auto mall as there will be in apartments, and so that does put a bigger strain on the system. And so that's an ongoing discussion. They have confirmed they have capacity in the system. It just wasn't necessarily in the plan.
Yeah, I think they said 32% more usage.
Correct. Yeah, so ongoing, yeah, that's one of the many things to be worked out in the development.
I think that kind of gets back to what I said, is that this process is, does Lake Helen sign off on these proposed changes so we can move forward? Because there's a lot of work to be done between now and final adoption of this comp plan amendment and the development agreement. And there's no reason to spend the time, effort, and money to do all that if you're right now going to say, no, that's not, we're not interested in that. That's what you said before, but then the law's changed. And so that changes the whole playing field and everything. But it just makes common sense that we want to make sure the direction we're going is the direction this commission wants to go. Maybe you're not wanting to go, maybe you're having to be dragged there. But the law's changed, and if you're comfortable going this direction, then now's the time to vote yes on this, so we can then start getting in all the details and all the work and all the money has to be expended to bring back a final product for you to vote on. So, any questions?
Commissioners?
I'm assuming that if we don't vote in favor of this and we could fall back on the governor's provision and affordable housing goes in, the land will still have an obligation to provide sanitary sewer and water, et cetera, et cetera. Yes.
I would probably agree with that.
there's a lot of uncertainty what this law means, how it gets implemented, but what it certainly means, for sure, is the property owner right now has the right to develop a certain level of residential, and that a certain percentage of that has to, by law, be affordable. That's crystal clear. That is absolutely crystal clear. How that gets implemented, there's a lot of ambiguities in that, but it's crystal clear that it's not solely your discretion to say, no, there won't be residential there, it's only going to be commercial, like you had 3 months ago, 4 months ago. That doesn't exist today.
So if we do this, we can help control what type of residential and what type of commercial is there somewhat. But if we don't do this, and they choose to go the other path, which is low-income housing, then we really don't have any control or any say over what they can or can't do, and it will impact property values, and it will impact the amount of tax revenue that we'll receive.
I don't want to say you have no say. You can have the ability to say, we want a mixed-use development, which means 35%, at least 35% will have to, or 35% will be commercial. But in terms of how that gets implemented, what it looks like, you're not going to, it will end up coming to you as a site plan, and that's where it really gets kind of vague in the law in my mind. Because normally what we do is we do a development agreement, and then that sets out, in essence, creates a land development code for that piece of property. And then we use that land development code for that piece of property to go forward with the site plan. I don't think the legislators thought about that. They didn't. How are we going to implement this now where you have commercial zoning and you're putting residential there? What apply? What land development regulations apply? They can't force us to have an agreement. I mean, that's just. My guess is there's really not many planners elected to Congress. That's the only thing I can assume. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of litigation over this law, and I just don't think that's a good position for Lake Helen to be in. But that's ultimately your decision. So I can't guarantee you what it would actually look like, but I will guarantee you there will be residential there, and I'll guarantee you 40% of it, at least 40% is going to have to be affordable housing. And on the way the law is written right now, they don't pay a lot in property taxes. So those are the kind of the parameters I can pretty much tell you. We will have a lot more control going this route than them pursuing their legal rights under the law.
The less ones we use.
Yeah, honestly, this really isn't that bad.
Yeah, I believe this is a better deal for both the city.
Yeah. Don't forget that according to the state's legislation, laws and stuff like that, that any apartment complex that has more than 7 units is commercial. Even though it's residential living in there, it's based on commercial. So it does give us a commercial tax base.
Unless they do affordable.
Well, even if they do affordable,
it's still
the state department that monitors that will calculate every year the charges and everything that were made for rental, and if it doesn't meet their standards of affordable, they don't get that benefit.
That's very true. Yeah. Very, very true.
I think this compromise is the word that's been used a couple of times, and I think it kind of fits. This is a good compromise. It works better for us than forcing them all the way back to their fallback. This will work much better for us going forward, and I think better for them as well. They get a better product, which again makes their commercial more sellable. It makes the apartments that they build more valuable to them and to us. I think it's a really good win-win of a compromise at this stage of the game. I really do. Any further discussion? Okay, none. Oh, I do see one hand. Mr. Preston.
I'll do what you were doing.
Okay.
Let them know that the sheets are up there if they want to talk. Let them know the sheets are up there if they want to talk.
Todd Preston, 352 Connecticut Avenue. And I just wanted to say, I certainly hope that you move this forward tonight. But I'm not going to hash over a bunch of things. Everybody's heard it 100 times, but I just want to reiterate one thing: access road. Okay, we're 5.5 years into this, and it's still vacant land, but when this moves forward, we're going to get an access road into our work center. The land has already developed just to the north of it. There's 350 residential homes right there, and they're going to be putting in apartments. So there's the population base to support commercial there, and this is going to be the blessing for it. So keep that in mind when you make your decision. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Any other public comment? Mr. Cook?
We've been going up and down with this thing and everything else for so long and everything. But my feelings are, at this point right now, yes, there was questions about that gentleman when we first started, what was going on and everything else. But my feelings are on being involved like I was and everything else, that, you know what? This gentleman has stuck with us through this whole thing, bad or not and everything else. And I think it's time that we step up to the plate and make this thing work. And I feel this lawyer and that gentleman will work it out for the benefit of Lake Helen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Seeing no further hands, any further discussion from Commission? Call the question. Zone 1?
Yes.
Zone 2?
Yes.
Zone 3?
Yes.
Zone 4?
No.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Doan, and thank you, Mr. Hurley. Appreciate your perseverance and hope you have a wonderful day. Truly do. Next on the agenda is new business, approval of 2 contracts, one for administering an SRF loan and one for applying for a water distribution SRF loan. Mr. City Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission, we have 2 contracts, as you indicated, with Andy Easton Associates. The first one has to do with the administrative process that goes with the water meter replacement project. Just a little brief summary. We have made application, we've been approved for funding, we are now actually in the funding scheme with the state for SRF funding for the meter replacement. They have both state and federal regulations that we have to meet throughout the process. Probably the most notable one, Commissioner Basso will tell you about, is the called the Bacon Act. Is it the Bacon Act? David Bacon. Which basically means somebody's got to go out and talk to every one of the employees working for any of the subs, ask them what they're making per hour, make sure it's an equal amount to Davis-Bacon requirements, et cetera, et cetera. And I just use that as an example of the both field work and the administrative work necessary to complete the applications for funding, adjustments for the funding, justification for funding, and all that good stuff. Anyway, that's a $20,000 contract with Andy Easton and Associates. The second one is, you recall we have already entered into a contract with our engineers for the engineering and planning of our water distribution system. Now it's necessary to actually make the application for the funding for the work that will come out of that project. And again, Andy Easton does that type work. And the second project then is for $25,000. And just so you have a frame of reference, when we worked with Florida Rural Water, they charged the $7,500 for the application process assistance. Andy Easton basically is charging us $5,000, and again, he has $20,000 in the contract to do the administration of the SRF loan once we get that.
So these two will give us the professional assistance both for the application and for the administration of the SRF grants.
Okay, so what do you need from us?
Approval. Just
Approval.
a motion to approve.
Do we have a motion to approve? To move.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the two contracts for administering the SRF loan and applying for a water distribution SRF loan. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we have an appointment to the Historic Preservation Board. We have an application from Melissa, is it Sincere? And are you here? She is not here, but we have an application from Melissa Sincere wanting to be appointed to the Historic Preservation Board. Do I have a motion to do that? It's just one applicant. I have a motion and a second to approve Melissa Sincere for the Historic Preservation Board. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Welcome to the board, Melissa, wherever you are. And we appreciate your application. Thank you. Next is the resolution 2023-04 for the tentative millage rate.
What about the employment agreement?
That was one that we not postponed, but we deleted. We don't really need to vote on it. We've voted on it. I just have to sign it once it's complete. That's where we stood, and it still stands there. We didn't really need to bring it back. Nothing's changed. They're just working out the details. And some of that, the main reason the only reason it's really been delayed is some of the retirement questions there are still unanswered. Basically, it's moving forward. Resolution 2023-04. What do we need on that, Mr. Attorney?
I'm just going to read out this resolution by title and maybe some other relevant parts, just out of pure paranoia. These laws regulating all this trim stuff is just rather over-talk than under-talk and discuss this, so I apologize. Resolution 2023-04 by title only. A resolution by the City of Lake Helen, Florida, relating to the levy of a general municipal ad valorem tax for the 2023-2024 tax year, providing a rollback millage rate for general municipal purposes, establishing a proposed millage rate for general municipal purposes, establishing a public hearing, providing for notice to the Volusia County property appraiser, providing an effective date. Just some relevant points in here. This resolution, the prior year millage rate was 6.85 mils. The proposed millage rate necessary to fund the tentative general fund budget for the city's 2023-2024 fiscal year is 6.85 mils, which is a 9.05% increase above the rollback millage rate of 6.23 mils. There will be a public hearing on September 14th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Will that be in the City Commission chambers? The one that has the mold? So we should really change that? Okay. And that will be changed to Hopkins Hall. And the correct address. I think that's all the relevant information in there, Your Honor. Oh, Your Honor. Mr. Mayor. Sorry. I'm sure you enjoyed that.
September 14th.
September 14th at 7 p.m.
Two little technicalities. If you notice in the first whereas clause, it has June XX, and that should be June 23rd, the date. The other is the actual trim notice takes your rollback rate out to 4 places, so it should be 6.2233, because that's what will appear on the rollback rate. Yeah, for the on the trim notice. That's the only corrections or modifications or notes.
And our mills, our 6.85 is 6.8500.
Yes, it
Okay.
is. And we're recommending we keep that and not go to the rollback rate, which I think the commission's already discussed.
Yes, we have.
Is that the motion, Mayor?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2023 as presented by staff.
Does the rate need to be in the motion?
Does what?
Does the rate need to be in the motion?
I think it's probably covered by the reading thereof. It's a good question. But I think it's covered by the reading, and make sure we don't misspeak. We'll just reference to what's been given to us in writing. Any further discussion on the resolution? Anything else that needs to be said, Mr. Attorney? We don't want to miss any T's or I's.
I'm being overly cautious, and this has been sent and reviewed by the property appraiser.
Yeah, just to reiterate for the...
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm just being overly cautious just because the rules on trim notice are so technical. But this resolution was sent to the property appraiser's office for review. The comment about going out 4 decimal points was their comment back to us, one of the comments they had. So they reviewed it and approved it, and I don't think it's necessary to read as much detail as I went into at this stage. I think it's later, but I thought it couldn't hurt us to do it now. So just being extraordinarily cautious here.
An abundance of caution. I appreciate it. Any further discussion on Resolution 2023-04? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I will bring up this yellow card under new business as well. Ms. Chavis, Johnny Chavis? Are you? Kind of caught you off guard, didn't I? Sorry about that. Would you mind taking her to the microphone?
I mean, no, I don't mind.
Excuse me.
Good evening.
Good afternoon, evening, and whatever. It's been a while since I've been up here to talk to you all, and you all know me from the Massey James Youth Center in Lake Helen on Church Street. I came tonight to ask the commission for a donation for the center. For a couple of years, I did request funds, and I got funds, and we used the funds. Last year, I decided, well, we had some fundraisers, so I didn't want to bother the city, about anything, but now we need a donation. So I'm just making a request, and if you tell me what I need to do, or whatever, we do a lot of programs. We have about 36 projects and programs we do each year, and we touch a lot of people in the city of Lake Helen, all around Lake Helen. So I'm requesting, and that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Chavis. I had the same question. Mr. Administrator, I know we have a budget line item for donations, and I know we have tapped into that some. Do you know where that stands at this point?
I don't know how much she's requesting. We do have another request on the agenda for the neighborhood center, is asking for funds too. So and we have a limited amount. I believe it's 7,000 max. I think we probably have 4 left. And that's from my memory, which isn't always correct.
Go ahead. 1,700?
Is it 1,500? Yeah, 1,500. So we have certainly enough to supply that. And again, if a number was mentioned, I missed it. But the
No, I didn't hear a number.
no.
Miss Johnny, you want to let us know how much you were requesting?
Did you have a figure in mind?
I have a figure in mind, but I'm asking for a donation because I didn't know what you all had in the budget. Last time you all gave me a donation contribution, what it was 5,000, 2,500 one time and 2,500 to make it 5,000. And that was 2 years in a row, and nothing last year. So what, I don't want to put an amount on it, because first place, when I say a donation, people give you a donation what it is. And we will take any donations we get, because we do a lot in the community. We need whatever money you have, as you said, we can have.
Thank you, Ms. Chavis.
$1,500 for neighborhood center, and we gave $2,500, or we exhaust the funds for the year. I'll make a motion to do that.
It's hard to say yes.
Second. We have a motion on the floor to provide the Massey James with $2,500 and the neighborhood center with, what was the amount? $1,500, which will exhaust our line item, our current line item, we think, for the best of our recollection, in our donation line item. Any discussion on that, Commission? Oh, was there a second?
Yeah, I did.
I thought there was, yeah. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. I'm sorry. I did have a yellow card. Did you?
You can vote, and I'll just
Okay.
speak
We're
on
just
it.
speaking in favor, and I also had a card from Todd Preston. He'll be next. Todd.
I've had the pleasure of volunteering over at Massey James Youth Center since they opened back up. And I have to say that they reach out to the community. They help all of those in need, and they never let anybody go hungry. So your donation will definitely be in the right hands. On that note, can we put that in the budget for next year? Since we're budget is a discussion for the next budget workshop?
We can discuss it at the next budget workshop if you help us remember.
Okay. I'm helping you remember.
I recall when I looked at the budget in the last workshop, there was a line item.
Just can't hear you.
Not specifically, but in general.
Yeah, we do have a general allocation in the budget already, and maybe, and this is what that's for. Maybe we need to look at the amount, because we do seem to be bumping up against it. Mr. Preston?
Are you in the public forum speaking?
No, this is a public forum. This is in reference to the yellow card, to the Massey James donation and the neighborhood center donation.
Okay, I just want to speak during the public forum.
We'll keep you in mind for public forum. Sorry.
I'm all for the money for the Massey James.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you very much to Massey James. Y'all are a wonderful organization and a very, very important asset to this community. Both Massey James and you personally. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 10, the quasi-judicial hearing.
Mayor?
Yes?
Excuse me, 9D is in David. You didn't, no, excuse me, you did that one.
Yep, we did.
10A. The
10A is where we are.
Yes.
Yes, the quasi-judicial hearing for 421 Pleasant Street. In this quasi-judicial hearing, are there any ex parte communications that need to be disclosed?
No.
I have had none either. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion, we approve the quasi-judicial reading for 421 Pleasant Street.
Second? I have a motion and a second to approve the motion, or the request from 421 Pleasant Street on the certificate of appropriateness with conditions. I'm assuming that you want to do it with conditions as listed by the...
What they recommended,
yeah,
yes.
as listed by the board. Any discussion? I was looking for Mr. Morales. I haven't seen him all evening, though I don't believe he's here, so... Okay, and that's good. I don't want to be paying him to say we don't need him. So, hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now, Mr. Preston, we have made it to public forum, and the floor is yours.
Todd Preston, 352 Connecticut Avenue. I just want to know if you have considered any of the information I sent on the email at the beginning of the week about establishing, as you're working towards through the budget, establishing a capital asset maintenance reserve fund for the water tower. I can expand on that a little bit. Water tower is a historic asset of the city. I know that some people would like to see it rust and fall down, but as long as I'm here, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen because it's older than every one of us here, and it's going to continue to outlive us. And it's an asset, and the city needs to maintain it. You're not doing your responsibility by failing to maintain it to the point where it deteriorates to the point where it's too costly to repair. So I would like to see you establish a fund, put a base amount in there, and start putting towards it, and then create a maintenance schedule for it to see what it needs to preserve it. So you probably saw my email. I recommended, $25,000 to $40,000 because you really don't need to put another $100,000 in the storm reserve fund. That's not. I don't think that's practical. But in another point to having the money for the to establish that fund, I would point out that if you look at the October financial or monthly expenses for September of last year, at the end of the fiscal year, all of October's bills, or most of them, were paid in September. And that's an old accounting trick to spend money that's left over at the end of the year. So this year you had 11 months worth of expenses when you budgeted for 12. So there should be surplus money there if you look at that. And it should give you enough, or pretty close to enough, to establish a maintenance reserve fund for the water tower. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Have you all had any thoughts about the water tower? I agree in principle that it would be foolish to just allow it to deteriorate to where it becomes a hazard. I'm one of those people, I don't think this is going to happen, but I'd rather take it down than let it deteriorate. I do understand that it probably won't cost all that much simply to maintain it as an historic artifact. And that's certainly another way to go, and that's what you're proposing. I understand that. Y'all have any thoughts on it?
I was thinking about bringing it up in the next budget meeting about just creating a general historic preservation fund for all of our historic buildings that the city owns, the historic properties that the city owns.
We could certainly fund a designated reserve with some of that money. That would be a very good use of that money, I think.
Make the argument that every building that we own in this town, should be on some sort of maintenance schedule and have X number of dollars set aside for operational maintenance.
And we do have maintenance money set aside. To have it more clearly defined is certainly admirable, I think.
I can't remember, does anybody else remember the last time it was painted? How long ago that was?
2000.
2000?
23 years ago.
It was restored in 2000.
At very least at this juncture, because I don't know what number to take out of the year. Okay, what I do know is that if we get a professional in that can give us an estimate on what it's going to take to do a proper maintenance, because we're talking about a structural maintenance that's predominantly, and not a functional use it as a water tower.
Right. In 2000, did that also include a painting of the inside? Was that making it a water asset, or was that just painting the outside?
We were going to try to use it on the system, but it did not work out. So we cut it free. The OHS cut it free, and I don't think we did something inside there, but we did the whole outside at the time because the subcontractor had to pay for a lot of cars to be clay barred because they did it wrong and they didn't encapsulate it then. And the catwalk was redone. We put a new roof on there. Remember when we had the one guy get up there? They made the roof smaller so it could not be put up there. But you have a lot of damage on the catwalk around. That's where you're going to spend most of your money. That catwalk is very, very dangerous. So you need to get somebody here to look at it and give you a price. But the catwalk, you can see pieces still falling. to this day right now.
So we probably need to put together a request for a bid or request for proposal, something to that effect.
Direct staff to do that.
Gonna put that on your to-do list?
Once we get that information back, then we'll have a better idea on what we need to fund. And we have to justify.
Yep, and the only, my only concern.
The reason I was saying all this, Darrell, because there's things that need to be fixed at City Hall, there's things that need to be fixed at Hopkins Hall, there's things that need to be fixed on the water tower. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed.
The funding concept encompasses
all historical things that the city owns.
A designated reserve for all of our facilities.
Do you want a special fund or a line item or?
I don't know, we'll work that out with staff at our meeting when we have our next budget workshop. Yeah.
So, Mr. City Administrator, could you bring that concept to our finance director to perhaps put together a clearly delineated maintenance reserve for our buildings?
I will do that.
I'm not sure what that'll look like, but I'm sure he'll have some good ideas for us.
I'd like to echo what Roger says, though, because we do have continual maintenance situations at the City Hall. Hopkins Hall is our pride and joy. And if anything is set aside, we don't have any extraordinary income other than the ARPA money which is left over. So no ongoing funds to support it, but you may want to consider in the future some sort of separate funding mechanism for things like that, so you don't have to take it away from other existing programs. Anyway, that's it. But we do need something to fund our historic structures. Historic structures are wonderful, but they're very expensive. Very expensive.
I'd be happy to go have a meeting with you and Zach and have some numbers ready for the next budget workshop.
Yeah, we can, and we'll bring in Rick too, so, yeah.
Absolutely.
That Rick.
Absolutely. Okay. Commission reports by zone.
Cookie's got his hand up.
I'm sorry. Cookie, did you have your hand up? What did you want to address?
I just wanted to mention that this gentleman sitting right there is the reason we are sitting in here tonight. And I wanted to make sure I thanked him and Ivy Hawn. And I feel that downtown they could work themselves up a letter that we could get to them appreciating what we did. Because as far as I understand it, if we need to use this again, if we do a real nice letter, Lee, real nice letter, we can get this back again when we need it. So I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Ivy Hawn, and thank you, Todd. Appreciate it. Yep, 2 thumbs up to both you and the facility here. Thank you. Commission reports by zone. Zone 1. Zone 2?
Nothing but family issues.
Okay. Zone 3?
I just have a question, part of the stormwater work. Where are we?
Can you use your mic, please?
I'm sorry?
We can't hear you.
I was curious, where are we with the stormwater project at Royal Park? Do you know where that is on the lineup?
I do. Yeah, our engineer's been working with the water management district. They have jurisdiction over it, and we are applying for state funds to do it. It was approximately a $60,000 project. I think it's probably expanded somewhat beyond that, just with time. But we are continuing to work on it. It's an ongoing project. You haven't seen anything because we haven't got the funding and the approvals yet for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Zone 4?
Yes, I have a couple. Brandon, I know you're giving a report later down the line, but I just wanted to ask you, are we now logged into the central reporting system? We are? Okay. I just wanted to make sure. two more short things. This letter from the Echo people saying that we're going to or should have or do have an ice cream coffee shop. You're laughing. Do we or don't we?
I believe we were going to address some of that Echo stuff during the city administrator reports. We talked about that earlier, so if you want to go there now, that'd be fine.
We did respond to the letter, and I think I sent you a copy of the, maybe I didn't send the letter? Okay. The city attorney and I have gotten together. They took our suggestion that we would be working on an ice cream parlor as, in our opinion, they took it as a commitment. It's not a commitment. So we simply said that in response, we've received your letter, and we intend to operate the CAC in accordance with the covenants of the ECHO grant, period. In other words, if they made an assumption that they heard something, we didn't say that.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Yep, I was just wondering.
And we do have funding we've set aside in the budget for some improvements to the CAC, which I think are going to be more than necessary to really assist us with the ECHO grant. Not with the grant, with making sure the grant is something that we can live up to.
Okay. I have one more kind of a sad thing to address. Was brought to my attention that apparently, I don't know, because you know you're hearing stories back and forth. How long it's been there, I don't know. They're saying 3 to 5 years. And supposedly, it was damaged by Public Works at one point and was brought down to the shed at City Hall to be repaired and put back. We have somebody's headstone that has been removed from his grave down at the shed at City Hall.
I'm sorry, what is it?
It's a headstone.
Oh, headstone.
It's been removed from his grave. His wife's is still there. His is not, because it's down there, and it's split in half.
There was a headstone. Matter of fact, it was the gentleman we were talking about today at Moyer, the Moyer family, the mother's headstone.
No, this is a man.
Yeah.
I actually have a picture of it. I forgot to write down his name.
I know.
But it's an old headstone.
Yeah, there was one that since I've been here that we damaged with the power mowers and we replaced. So
it's got to be in the shed for some reason. We must have damaged it, or why would it be there?
I don't know either.
But that needs to be fixed and taken care of and put back.
I will get out there tomorrow.
Because that's very sad.
Yeah, it is.
Especially if it's been there as long as I was told, but.
Well, maybe that is the one that we did have replaced.
No.
We'll have to look at that. We'll have to figure that out.
It's not there. I went to the cemetery and took pictures and everything. It's still down there. That's all I got.
Okay, now we have commission reports on its own. We've done that. Chief of Police reports. Sir, did you have anything you would like to bring to our attention?
I just wanted to say 4th of July went great, as usual. We rarely have problems on 4th of July, so the parade went smooth, the event went smooth, we had no issues. But the main thing I do want to bring up is a couple of weeks ago, Alan Cook got together with me. There is a event called National Night Out that is a community police department event. Not all police departments do it, but he had come to me about it, you know. I thought it was a great idea, so we're planning an event currently for August 1st, correct?
Yes.
Tuesday, August 1st, from 6 to 8:30. So just spread it around. We'll have flyers out soon, mostly for kids. We'll have hot dogs, we'll have games, just something feel good to bring the gym, the Lake Helen Police Department, and the community together again. I just wanted to let you guys know about that.
Excellent.
Yeah, the gym, yeah.
Chief, you need any funding for it?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Leah's already talked to me about it. If we do, it won't be much.
I'll get Alan to get you a check.
Sure. Alan's been helping me a lot. Officer Rushworth has been doing a lot of legwork on it, so, but we'll have flyers out as soon as we figure everything out. We don't exactly know what we're having there yet. Some things we do, but we'll have a flyer out within a week, have it posted on the website.
We won't have another meeting between now and then, so if you do want some funding, we can just by consensus say, or by vote if you want, get them a budget for this.
I think Rick was first.
Rick's given.
I know.
Given. I can do it again.
But, did you have a budget figure in mind, or were you?
Zero? No, I'm kidding. No, we're looking at probably $500.
Is that okay if we just authorize that?
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Okay.
I'll let you know if it gets any more.
The most of the cost is going to be possibly hot dogs if we can't get them donated. You know, hot dogs, buns, ketchup, maybe some bottles of water, soda, and we're working on getting a bounce house donated, but there might be a minimal fee. So at the most, it'd be $500. I think it's one of those feel-good things that people are going to donate to it for free. So
Sounds like a great idea.
It's not the most we're going to have out of pocket.
Thank you. So, staff, feel free to spend that money with our blessings. And thank you for...
And one more thing, you guys got them.
Chief, before you get off that subject, did you check with the local fire department to see if they wanted to get involved? Because the fire departments usually get pretty involved in those in the other cities.
I spoke to the town chief. The town chief is putting a request up to his higher ups to get approval for it. Said because it's a free event. And with the community, he said it probably shouldn't be a problem, but they were invited to show up and be a part of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Other thing I wanted to address was the commission reports that we do. I've changed the name to police log now because that's essentially what they are. You'll notice some different things on there. We're not putting addresses on there anymore like we used to do. I don't feel it's right. You know, if you have a call on Lakeview, that's fine, but when we have a call on a small road, and then, you know, community gets together and then it becomes, let's play detective, you know, whose house was it? And we just put down, those are the calls for service on those dates. Eventually, I want to get that worked into our website so the public can just go onto the website, look up police logs, you know, for every month. But that's about how they are. They'll be a little more detailed. The system you had mentioned, yes, it is online, but it is nowhere near perfect. So there are a lot of kinks, but it's a county-wide issue, not a Lake Helen issue. So,
But you
but
are signing up with them and all of that, right?
yes, you will be getting police logs from here on out, yes. And if you don't, that's because I failed or forgot, or, and I'll make up for it.
Thank you. Next is our Public Works Director report.
Hi.
Howdy.
Well, I'll let you know we did the Royal Park water break. That's completed. The one on Michigan Avenue is also completed with Big Dog site work helping us because we're short-handed right now. That's an 1.5 inch galvanized line. We had about a 2-foot space, and then we got another leak, and there's another leak right beside it we caught, but we're gonna get the ground penetrating radar out there with the help of Florida Rural Water. We're gonna find that line. It's an old line that shouldn't even be feeding anybody anymore. When we put the new line in 2000, we put the 8-inch around there. It just was never abandoned. So we're gonna try to find that and abandon that line so we don't have that leak anymore and take care of that. We also had a dead sycamore at 306 South Euclid removed, stump ground by CFB Incorporated. We had a tree down in Austin and Volusia. We had CFB clean it up while they were waiting for the power company. They trimmed the right-of-way and a bad stop sign area there at Summit and Volusia, or actually Summit in Austin. We moved the water meters at 569 Virginia Drive for Miss Portia Robleski. She's been waiting since November to get them moved. So as soon as Drew Whitehouse gets in town, I'll have them out there to pour the driveway for and get that buttoned up. And I'm working on the easement to remove the trees and get the easement completely opened up. Thank goodness you didn't have it done because there's a 6-inch water line there, asbestos. If you were to hit it, it would have destroyed everything in that area, took out everything. I'm also working on getting the shop reorganized and the water truck back organized so we can use it. We're gonna have to get some pumps. You auctioned off the pumps we had there.
and we've got to replace them now. We're going to do the work ourselves, so I'll be getting with you. We get them from Harbor Freight, believe it or not. They're like $200 or $300 a piece for most of them, but they last better than the Hondas and the ones you pay $3,000 for. And if you blow one up, it's $300. You can buy 10 of them for the cost of a Honda. So I'll get with Lee on them. I'm going to get a 1-inch, a 2-inch, a 3-inch, and then all that. You're probably looking less than $1,800 at Harbor Freight to get them replaced. When we're setting up the trailer now with the Mini and everything, so we can just back in for a water break, pull out and go. But we're getting there. It's going to take a while.
Sure. Thank you.
No,
That's it.
I was gonna say not for nothing, and I didn't have nothing to do with you. Why and how did those water meters get put in the middle of a horse's driveway?
Things happen.
Oh, yeah.
They should have been. They should have been in the easement right between the two houses,
Exactly.
and it should have been a double meter box. I put them both in 1 meter box, and they're now out of the way, so they're ready to go.
I know back when we had the great flood and we got that huge pump, I don't know, I don't remember exactly what all was the issue with it as far as its ability to run or maintain or whatever.
I was going to get with Lee. It needs to go back to Thompson Water Pump. We took it there a few years ago, and they go through it, and they get everything working on it again because we don't use it that often,
Yep.
the O-rings and gaskets, but we're not qualified to take care of that. Last time we sent it out to Thompson, we had it done. I'm going to say it was around $4,000 or $5,000 to get everything redone on it and get it done, but that's a maintenance thing that has to be done by them.
Right.
So I'll be sending it out once I talk to Lee about it. We take it straight back to Thompson, who built it.
Yeah, the other part of that question was, we couldn't pump across the street because traffic needed to stay open. And I know I've seen they make these metal.
Yeah, they make covers that go over and everything.
Yes.
Where at particularly though, because
It was down there off of Ohio.
yeah, off Ohio. Now on High Street, when we pumped in '04, we pumped for like months at a time. So we just put under the road and then underneath every driveway, and we could pump without encouraging, messing up anybody's day when driving through there. So that's still down there in case we have to pump them houses.
Gotcha.
Need some attention done to them, but they're still available if we do.
Yeah, because when we were down there, somebody was saying there was supposed to be a relief pipe under the road, and nobody seemed to
Not on
be able to
that
find
Ohio
it.
down there.
Yeah.
There's not one that I know of at all.
Well, good, we couldn't find it.
It's not there. No, I've never seen it.
But in any event, it may well be worth having one of those things, so if we're in a situation like that again, I don't know. You'll get to the
I'll
bottom
get
of
a
it, I'm
pricing
sure.
on it, and we'll get that to go across the road.
All right.
We only need really one to go across one road.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Anything else?
I was going to say, is there anything else that we kind of threw in some questions that we didn't want to completely interrupt you?
No, that was it.
Any other questions? Commission? Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Next is City Administrator Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item is the Strawberry Festival. You know, they have supplied an application for reservation of the Equestrian Center on a particular date and time for March of next year. And your action tonight would simply approve that particular event for that particular time. We still have to work with them on how much it would be a fair number for them to pay us to use the park. Last year, they paid us $2,000 a day, plus all of the costs we incurred for police officers and security. So about $2,700 the first day, $2,000 the second day, so $4,700 for the weekend. They had an exceptionally good turnout. The parking was obviously a problem. I know the chief and I are concerned, and we'll have to work on parking for next year, but we'll probably be working toward a much higher number for them to rent the park this coming year to offset some of the, I'm not sure what it offsets. Give us some more revenue, I guess. But anyway, so we have that. Then we just need your approval to set aside that date in their application.
Do I have a motion for approval of the setting aside a date for the Strawberry Festival? Do I have a motion from
I'll second it.
Commissioner Bishop?
I'll second it.
And a second from Commissioner Eckert. to approve the Strawberry Festival, reserving the park for those dates. The dates aren't in front of me, but
March 16th, 17th.
March 16th and 17th?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Do I have any discussion from the commission?
Yeah, I have a question. Are we going to be involved with the conversation as far as you're going to get a much higher number next year? I don't want to be, shoot the golden goose.
No, I don't either, and I probably shouldn't have used the modifier there much. We do want to have a higher number, but not necessarily a much higher number.
Yeah, were the restroom facilities and those kind of things also built into that?
They paid for all of that, yes.
Okay.
Yes, they did. They were very generous in their accommodations to our requests.
Gotcha.
They cleaned up beautifully afterward.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a great success and something we need
was.
to continue.
It did seem like a great success. The only thing I saw was that it kind of caught us off guard as to how much there was. We did have parking issues. Because of that, the attendance was just much higher than anybody anticipated. So we'll have to probably beef up our police involvement there, but they're paying for that, so that's...
Do we have additional parking, or have you talked to Mr. Costa about?
They weren't concerned about the parking. That was our problem.
Yeah, they didn't need to worry about that.
No, and I have talked to the chief, and we're probably going to be opening up a Blake Park to a certain extent, park there, and perhaps even other area. We'll have to work it out, but we know what the magnitude of the problem is now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have two requests from the public to speak towards this, Ms. Frasca, and then you'll be next.
I'm sorry. Oh, there we go.
Might I suggest Mitchell Park should be something that we can look at? It's a short walk, but we do have parking available over there.
Thank you.
This one is, I don't know if the Saddle Club has given you their schedule yet, but I know as in the past, we've always worked with them to see what their days are. They're usually about the same. So.
Interesting point, because they are required to give us a annual reservation of time that they intend to use it, and they haven't done it in 2 years, and I've told them, and they continue to ignore that request. But I did check with the individual I've usually checked with, which is Betty O, and she indicated that was free for them, so not a problem. But it's been frustrating when they haven't lived up to their agreement.
Before you proceed, I have a request from Cookie behind you. If you could hand the mic to Cookie behind you.
Just happens to be that I'm sitting next to a gentleman here, and we've talked about parking. And he brought up that they'd be willing to do the parking. They got 300 spots between up there and down here that we could use if we needed to, Lee. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Okay.
That's because I was raising his neck.